Good morning and welcome to the breakfast or government CIO breakfast meeting. I would like to welcome the Right Honorable Minister of ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Balyomunsi. He is our minister in the Ministry of ICT. And the honorable members of parliament and their representatives. I will not mention all the representatives who have attended. The representative from the bank, represented by the country manager, Ms. Mokami. The CEOs present, I've seen a couple of CEOs. It's nice to meet you again after meeting at the CEO Expo. And all the representatives from other agencies and the media. Welcome to this key event for Uganda. It's not just one for Nita, but this is an event for Uganda, an achievement in the digital transformation of our country. RCIP, or the Regional Communications Infrastructure Project, was a project that started in 2016, late 2016, to roll out fiber to enable government of Uganda transform digitally by rolling out fiber, rolling out e-government services that are electronic or digital, and also changing the mindsets. I know ICT, Ministry of ICT is the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. We need to be guided on how to transform digitally too. And from the ministry, I appreciate the effort that the Ministry of ICT has provided to implement this project. They have guided in transforming agencies, transforming Uganda, in adopting digital solutions. The journey of RCIP, as mentioned, started in 2016. We are coming to a close. We should have ended in February 2020, but because of the pandemic, we know the challenge that we went through as a country and globally. Pandemic put some work on hold, and we had to request for an extension. But with that extension, we are requesting to complete the project at 100% completion. This is one of the highest performing projects in the portfolios of the bank, and I think it is an achievement. Thank you. The project was set forward to provide two objectives. One, lower the cost of international capacity for internet, broadband internet, and extend the reach of the broadband network to as far as the parishes. Two, improve government efficiency and transparency through e-government applications. That was the major objective of RCIP, and I believe we have achieved that. Within those objectives, there were sub-components or smaller areas of scope of works, and we broke them down into four major areas. The first was enabling environment, and the panelists will elaborate more on that. The second, connectivity, and this is, I think, the major component within RCIP. Third, e-government, as you have heard from the director, e-government services. E-government directorate, or the e-government services, are the pillar to that digital transformation of our country. And the fourth was project management within NITA and other stakeholders, other ministries, agencies, and departments. We also focused our scope of works in four sectors of government. This was agriculture, health, education, justice, law and order sectors. Under RCIP, NITA was able to register milestones, successful milestones within the 5 years and the additional extension due to COVID of 6 months. And the biggest milestone is completing the project at 100% completion. The other milestones, I'll just break down a couple of them. I can't go through all of them in the interest of time. But under RCIP, we extended fiber in two areas. There's the backbone, what we know as the highway, the high-speed internet cable, or what is commonly known as the National Backbone Infrastructure / e-government infrastructure. We extended over 842 kilometers of backbone and 764 kilometers of last mile. What's the difference? Backbone is like a highway. This is a high-speed internet cable, which is meant to connect districts between districts or district to district regional areas. But last mile is taking the fiber or taking connectivity to the office, to the last user of the service. With that connection, we were able to double the number of users within a year and a half. So congratulations for all the technical people. I know the team spent sleepless nights and they really need a big hand clap for this. Double, and even we are due to even pass those numbers. This was not expected, but if we can do it, let's do it. Let's shoot for the sky. If we can shoot for the sky, let's shoot even above the skies. On top of that, we were able to connect Wi-Fi hotspots. When we take fiber, we also need to set up Wi-Fi hotspots because most of our technology devices are now wireless. So we also connected 300 Wi-Fi hotspots, which, when commissioned, will provide high-speed internet access. And we also intend to provide free Wi-Fi because we already have Wi-Fi in Kampala, but we need to get the regional centers also using the service, and we shall provide that same service up-country. We also went green. Technology is destructive if not managed well, but as we're even going, we're adding a plus. We're not just rolling out technology, we're rolling out green technology. So our transmission sites, this is like when you're taking power, you need a transmission base. That uses a lot of power also. Similarly, internet, when you're taking internet, you need a transmission site that uses internet, or power, sorry, electricity. But we have transformed all the transmission sites on the NBI to solar. So our major source of energy is solar energy on the transmission sites. Under RCIP, now this is one of the objectives, to lower the cost of internet and cost of doing business in Uganda through technology, information and communication technologies. When we started the project, RCIP project, the cost of internet was at $300 for 1 megabyte per second per month. Currently, and during the project implementation, that cost was we were able to reduce the cost to $70 for 1 megabyte per second per month. But that's not all. We intend even to lower it after the final commissioning next month. So you will be receiving a new price of the cost of internet, and this will benefit not just government, but even the private sector. The cost of data on your phone will also come down. That was about a 56% reduction. If we are to benchmark currently at $70, we are still at 56% cheaper than any other service provider in the market for the quality of internet that is provided. E-government services, and for this there are many. We have more than 190 applications at Nita, or hosted at Nita. I can't go through them all, but I'll highlight the major projects and applications that were developed under RCIP. We developed a whole of government integration platform, what we call UG Hub. UG Hub brings together government systems. It enables information sharing. It provides you a very high-speed access, very very integratable solution for government agencies and even the private sector to share information effectively, efficiently, and securely, because information sharing sometimes will have a challenge if we are not securing it, but UG Hub provides that measure of security in sharing information between government agencies and the private sector, and banks. Banks have really, I appreciate the financial sector for adopting UG Hub. When you are going to open, or when you go to a bank to open up a bank account, first thing they will ask for is verification of your national ID. Previously, it was a 1 week process. If you are lucky, it takes about a week. If you're not, a month, to just verify that Hatui Bungasa is Hatui Bungasa, as government knows him in the national register. With UG Hub, it is a click of a button. You just supply your NIN and the banks are able to verify you immediately. So that's a benefit of RCIP. We also centralized the hosting services within government by building onto the National Data Center. We have 196 applications hosted at the National Data Center for 95 government entities. What does this mean? Those 95 government entities did not have to build, they didn't have to spend any cost on building up their own data centers. Just the initial cost of a data center will take you back about 10 million US dollars for a secure and sustainable data center for a government agency. So $10 million out of the 90 government agencies were saved for government. Then there are recurring licensing, recurring costs like licenses, power, cooling. These machines take a lot of power. Annually, an average data center will consume about 500,000 US dollars to maintain annually for recurring costs. The government of Uganda has taken down that cost, and this is per, I would say, in some cases per system. So the 196 applications would have cost almost 500,000 US dollars per application. What NITA through RCIP did was to bring that cost down to tens of thousands of US dollars. It's average about 14,000. That's the last calculation that I did. 14,000 US dollars per application. That is almost a 98% saving to government of Uganda. RCIP also rolled out other systems, the Unified Messaging and Collaboration System, to streamline and standardize the way government information is shared. There is a cabinet directive that was passed early this year, instructing government agencies to only communicate through official government channels, but we still have instances where information, sensitive information, is being shared through non-official government channels. Through UMCS, or the Unified Messaging and Collaboration System, government of Uganda was able to implement that directive, and I commend the CEOs in this room, the leaders of the IT sectors in those agencies for instructing or driving this transformation of the non-official to official communication within their agencies, and were able to get 129 government entities officially adopting the official communication channels, with almost 23,000 users now compliant. Then now I'll just go through the last three very fast, because there are so many benefits from RCIP. If we are to go through all of them, we'll finish probably next week. But the last big three benefits, the digital authentication and electronic signature solution. what we are terming as or calling UG Pass. Yes, you can communicate securely, but once that communication is received at the end user, how do you authenticate that communication? So UG Pass comes in with that answer. It authenticates with a digital signature. We are offering you a solution that will certify your communication and avoid fake news, as we have seen in the news. Signing contracts, you can sign digitally. Banks also transacting online. We know we're now going, we're seeing cryptocurrencies or some form of crypto or electronic transactions being utilized, but it will not be beneficial for the banks if there's no authentication and signing platform. So the digital signature solution is here to solve that problem. In the sectors, we have one of the biggest initiatives that we rolled out under RCIP was in the agricultural sector by rolling out an agro input traceability system. This is a system designed to track agro products from the seedlings. From the seedlings, what type of seedlings were used to produce a product? What are the chemical or agrochemical composition? And you forgive me for if there are any someone from agriculture sector, the phytosanitary settings of the or features of the agro product were also captured in this system, and this is to enable our products to be recognized internationally, to be certified, recognized, and to promote our agro products, not just locally, but for the international market. Another system was within the National Data Center, or we certified our National Data Center to a ISO IEC 27001 certification. This is one of the highly achieved certifications within data centers, and this now puts us in a level of a developed nation, or in terms of securing our information, we are at par with developed nations. So that can also provide more guarantee that if an international organization would like to come and do business within Uganda, and they are data-centric, or they depend on data, Uganda is able to accommodate their needs. With that, we also rolled out, provided computers to schools, government agencies, and all the sectors that were earmarked for RCIP. As I conclude, I would like to thank our parent ministry, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, for the guidance and support they provided to the sector and to Nita in digitizing Uganda. I would also like to thank our development partners, the World Bank in enabling us make this project a success. We would not have done it without the support from the World Bank. Thank you. And other service providers. As mentioned, this project was rolling out fiber, which was provided by one of the or the leading developers of fiber optic cable or technology in the world, Huawei International, and also the other service providers. I cannot mention all of them. And lastly, I would like to thank the staff at the National IT Authority of Uganda for the resilience and commitment to transforming our nation to a knowledge-based nation. Thank you very much. I thank the chief information officers of all organizations that worked with us through this 5-year journey, and being our ambassadors and opening doors for us. Thank you very much. And with those remarks, I would like to now invite the country manager for the World Bank to provide, to give us a word of, thanks.
Minister of ICT, Chris Byanamusa, the Nita-U ED, Dr. Hauti Bugasa, members of parliament, members of the government, chief information officers, and members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking you for inviting me to join this morning's meeting. We are honored to be here to share a few perspectives on the role of the 5th Regional Communications Infrastructure Project in expanding digital connectivity, improving service delivery, promoting inclusion, resilience, and sustainable growth. As you may already know, the 5th Regional Infrastructure Project is part of a series of investments that the World Bank has made in the region. This series of projects has been instrumental in building the backbone infrastructure for digital services that we're all benefiting from today. So I'm happy to be joining you today to celebrate the completion of yet another leg in this journey. The World Bank is proud to have been a partner in Uganda's ongoing digital transformation journey, and we hope to continue in this role. Let me open by congratulating Nita-U and the Ministry of ICT and NG on your stellar accomplishments under RCIP 5 initiative and on your continuous efforts to digitize public services and deliver them in increasingly user-friendly ways, especially during the COVID pandemic. As we all know, the digital technology that we benefited from enabled us to continue services and business operations across various facets of society during the pandemic. The RCIP project has the broad development objective of addressing the regional communication connectivity constraints, particularly for landlocked countries, which must rely on transiting broadband infrastructure through neighboring countries. The regional program has supported different countries over the last 5 phases. The first phase covered Kenya, Burundi, and Madagascar, linking the undersea cables to the region. The second phase covered Rwanda. The third phase, Malawi, Mozambique, and Tanzania. The fourth, the Union of Comoros. And the fifth was designed and approved in 2016, as we've heard, to support Uganda in its efforts to lower prices, extend the geographic reach of broadband networks, and improve the government's efficiency and transparency through e-government applications. The RCIP series of projects has also enabled interconnection of infrastructure within the region. And so indeed, we have a network now that will serve us well into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, digital platforms are increasingly playing a role in transforming the way people, governments, and businesses, as well as civil society, interact with each other. The use of these digital public platforms in Uganda continues to grow as the country increases its efforts to digitize public services. Uganda needs to build on this notable progress and increase the potential benefits of public and commercial platforms to expand access to digitized services and transactions. Key pieces of legislation and their implementation, especially on cybersecurity and cybercrime, data protection, and protection of critical information infrastructure, need to be strengthened to enhance trust in the use of digital platforms. developing a robust identification document platform, we also believe can help to facilitate access to digitized services and transactions for citizens and cut down on resource leakage. Better utilization of shared digital infrastructure and services and adherence to common standards across government would allow for greater efficiency and interoperability of government platforms, and ultimately a better user experience and stronger uptake among individuals and businesses accessing public services online. At the World Bank, our financing analytical support is articulated around an ecosystem approach targeting foundation pillars, including digital connectivity, digital financial services, digital public platforms, digital businesses, and digital skills. For instance, the RCIP 5 project that we're here to celebrate today has provided support for developing and updating key laws and regulations with the view to increasing competition, lowering prices for broadband connectivity, and extending digital services. It's also expanded the national fiber optic backbone infrastructure and connected government facilities around the country to high-speed broadband. The project will also help to improve government's ability to deliver services to its citizens by putting in place e-government infrastructure, digital platforms, and other shared services. RCIP 5 closes at the end of August and is expected to achieve all its key objectives, as we've heard, disbursing the $75 million in funding allocated for the project. Achievement of these objectives is indeed a reason to celebrate. So I think, as I've said, ICT and innovation are critical to the success of Uganda's Vision 2040, including the aim to ensure more inclusive use of digital technologies. Achieving Vision 2040 will require proactive policies to foster inclusivity, including addressing gender and geographical disparities in the country. Currently, Uganda ranks for 83rd out of 100 countries on the Inclusive Internet Index, and while 4 out of 5 people live within the range of a mobile broadband network, fixed internet connections stand at less than 1%. Indeed, the digital era technology is instrumental and will become essential in enabling and ensuring that we achieve development outcomes. So the goal of ensuring inclusivity laid out in Vision 2040 is critical. Let me also note that the planned UDAP GovNet project, this is Uganda Digital Acceleration-GovNet project, approved by the World Bank Board in June 2021, aims to build on the outcomes of RCIP 5. It's well aligned with the objectives of Uganda's current NDP 3, which covers the period fiscal year 21 to 25. NDP 3 notes that digital technology can play a catalyzing role in raising agricultural productivity, improving broadband infrastructure, workforce competitiveness, and service delivery. And therefore, UDAP-GovNet project is intended to contribute to these objectives, as well as the enhancement of refugee protection in accordance with NDP 3's Governance and Security Program Implementation Action Plan. The UDAP-GovNet project has been designed to support the implementation of the GovNet initiative, which is government's flagship initiative contributing to the objectives of Digital Uganda Vision and the Digital Transformation Project under NDP 3. So the acceleration of the digital agenda through this Uganda Digital Acceleration Project will support applications across multiple sectors. We've already heard about agriculture, but obviously education and other critical sectors are also beneficiaries of this project. And it will also help to develop safeguards around privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity, as well as aligning the digital agenda with climate change priorities. Indeed, we believe at the bank that technology will be advanced through the project and will offer Uganda the opportunity to leapfrog forward and accelerate the pace of development. So we are keen to actively engage, to explore ways to leverage emerging technologies for a data-driven development across the country. We hope, therefore, that the approval of the UDAP GovNet project will soon be finalized to enable a seamless transition from RCIP 5 to UDAP-GovNet and allow the continuation of the digital program that government has started. I take this opportunity to reaffirm the commitment of the World Bank in accompanying Uganda on this journey of developing a robust and vibrant digital environment, and really look forward to seeing the outcomes of the many achievements that were mentioned by the ED earlier. Thank you very much.
Come on, a bigger and much deserved round of applause for our development partner, without which all the achievements the ED talked about would not have been possible. Ladies and gentlemen, following our program, and I'm glad we're doing well on time, and maybe just to give you a heads up, I believe you all scanned and have a copy of the program. In a short while, I'm going to be inviting our board chair to give his remarks, shortly after which we shall have a panel discussion before we have our tea break. And so right now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our board chair, Honorable James Chiwalabye Kabajo, as he comes just to give us his remarks on behalf of the board.
The Honorable Minister of ICT and National Guidance, Honorable Chris Bariomusi, Honorable MPs present, the representative of World Bank, Nita-U board members present, the ED of Nita and all the team members from Nita-U, all the partners present here with whom we have worked, Huawei, Soliton, and the others, the CIOs present here, and the press. Good morning to you all. It gives me great pleasure to address you today and thank you for joining us this morning. The government of Uganda's Digital Vision 2020 identifies ICT as a key driver to development. We can all agree that we cannot talk about development without integration of ICTs in all that we do. It's practically the fuel that ignites all sectors of the economy. ICT enables economic development by broadening the reach of technologies such as high-speed internet, mobile broadband, and computing. Expanding these technologies itself creates growth, and the fact that technologies make it easier for people to interact and make labor and makes for a more productive environment. The government of Uganda has recognized that for us as Uganda to attain a knowledge-based society, investments in ICT are critical. The pillars that need working on include the institutional framework, and that involves the different entities, for example, UBC, Nita-U, Posta Uganda, UICT, and of course, with the mother ministry, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, being the overall in charge of the sector. Then there is the legal and regulatory framework. And in this area, we have various policies that have been set up, such as the National ICT Policy, Broadband Policy, e-government regulations, telecom regulations, the Electronic Signature and Transactions Act, Data Protection and Privacy Act, and others. And all these are needed in order to set up a proper framework for working. Sorry. Yeah, the infrastructure framework has also seen the establishment of the national backbone, e-government infrastructure, data center transmission sites, the national SAT, and other elements of the infrastructure. Our esteemed guests, I would like to confirm to you that enabling environment for Uganda's digital transformation has been laid. Uganda now boasts of a vibrant and robust IT ecosystem. Through the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance and Nita-U, the government set up the national backbone infrastructure so as to connect all public service entities in Uganda, districts and towns, health centers, learning institutions, via an optical fiber optic network. With funding from the World Bank, NITA was tasked to implement the Regional Infrastructure Program, RCIP, with a program to transform public service delivery in Uganda, using ICT in order to improve the lives of Ugandans. I would like to thank the bank for extending financial support to government of Uganda and within Nita-U as an implementing agency, which has enabled the successful completion of this project. The RCIP project has enabled government of Uganda to further extend the geographical reach of broadband services to all regions of the country. And right now, the network covers over 4,300 kilometers, traversing 56 districts and connecting over 1,400 government offices. This has enabled the reliable transmission of data and other government services across government and enhances the efficiency and effectiveness of communication as well as service delivery. Before this network was set up, we used to have a situation where government servants working in the different parts of the country would do their work, save the work on a flash disk, and send it with a driver or by post to maybe to Kampala or wherever it was required. But now, with this network, they are able to transmit the data efficiently. Through RCIP, Nita-U has also established the first Tier 3 national data center, and this has allowed government entities to have a place where they can have data center services without having to replicate the same services in different entities. And that has caused a reduction in cost to the country, because each data center that you establish costs money first to set up and also to maintain. And this has helped the country to reduce on the silo-based hosting services, and also as we go to the phase of integration, this one is also going to help us in the integration of government services. I conclude by thanking our parent ministry, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, for the vision, guidance, direction, and the support that you have given to Nita-U, and all the people that we have been working with in order to implement the RC project. As we continue to push for digital transformation and an increase in connectivity within Uganda, affordability and inclusivity should be central to the digital shift. Our commitment is to achieve nationwide connectivity, internet affordability, and ease of access to digital tools so that no one is left behind in Uganda's digital future. I wish you all fruitful deliberations for God and my country.
Come on, a bigger round of applause for our board chair. And in a short while, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having that panel discussion that I told you about, whose theme is harnessing connectivity for IR as a driver for socio-economic transformation. But just before that, I've been advised we'll be having Mr. Robert Mutebi just to come and give a small direction or just guide us with a small speech in regard to the panel that we're getting into right now. So I'll ask us to give him a round of applause as Mr. Commissioner makes his way here.
Robert Mutebi is my name. I'm a Commissioner for IT and Innovations at the URA. Happy to be here. All protocol observed because of the time that we have. I have a personal mission that excites me to be here. I've been in IT for quite a while, and I've seen how it transforms lives. So the passionate mission I have in being part of this fraternity is to make Uganda one of the best places to raise a family. And when you look at that, for all of us who are parents who worry about the socio-economic status of our country and dream of that day when we don't have to send people abroad for them to have a decent living. And the things that we're talking about take us there. Socio-economic, when you think about that, simply means that there's increasing value in the community and that we're creating constant and growing abundance around us, wherever we go. And so the points I want to make here as a sense of what can 4IR do for us, to be able to deliver socio-economic development for us are very few. For some of us, maybe, who are not high-tech, this is what 4IR means. It means the fourth industrial revolution. The first revolution is what happened in 1704 when we were introducing mechanical systems in the sense of factories. I think the most common thing there was a steam engine that you have this mechanical machine that is powered by coal, and you had a lot of slaves that have to keep digging this up to power the whole thing. And so the steam engine was the first industrial revolution. The second one came when power, electric power was introduced. And instead of using manual hands to move the mechanics, you had electrical power driving that. And that powered a lot of industries. The third one is when computing was introduced. So we came into this age, that was about 1960, of using computers to do a lot of arithmetic and a lot of calculations and a lot of work that we are used to doing. And now, right now, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. It's still computing, but now we have man and machine working together. And therefore, I think the most common thing is really when you walk into the room and the lights go, your presence and the machine sensing that you're there, then delivers a service. Some of us have been on the expressways where the cameras flash the moment your vehicle moves in. So the critical thing here is running around sensors. Sensors working with you to be able to deliver a service. Then certain things that we can look at right there, I mean, number of technologies that you hear about, robotics, virtual reality, the connectivity that we're talking about that's ubiquitous, cloud computing, the big data, they sound like big buzzwords for most of us. But we are in that space right now. And the conversation we're going to have really is around what does that take? It takes a transition for us, takes innovation, takes a lot of integration, takes a lot of data that we need to talk about, and interconnectivity. And so that's really what 4IR is all about. But this is what it means in terms of practical application, which is my second point. Stakeholder engagement. We've been building technologies along the way that are focused within the organizations where we are. But right now, I think we're all learning that ecosystems and platforms is really what changes the game. There's nothing that we're doing in government that is self-centered right now. In my place in the URA, I think we collect all revenue for government for all MDAs. So whatever platforms I have to build have to be centered around driving the ecosystem across all the MDAs. When you build a payment platform in Nita, it is not for Nita. It is for an ecosystem around, and there are many stakeholders around there, employers, staff, the general community, partners like the World Bank, a lot of other people in the marketplace, businesses and stuff. So the platform needs to be able to serve everyone in that space. And so we see a lot of challenge for us to create much stakeholder value, because everyone who plays in that space needs to have something, quid pro quo, in other words. Cross-organization transaction flows to be complete. The other day I was calling a friend in Nita, calling here. We had an issue with payments at Mulago. They come through Nita, and then they land in URA, and then they go to the bank. So if this person is standing there and they're trying to make a payment for a sick patient, every one of us is a player in this process. And if we're not able to drive ecosystems that can serve like that, we fail, all of us. And so we have distributed roles and expectations in this space as we develop these ecosystems. And there are many things that we talk about here. We need to identify people. If any one of us, whether you're a bank, whether you're a whoever you are, you're NSSF, you need to register and identify these particular people. So the ED was talking about how right now banks can identify you by the national database in an instant. There's a lot of players around that. We need to address and be able to enable payments in forms of payment gateways and dashboards for us to be able to see how we are performing across the chain. And a lot of process improvements, interoperability, and a lot of documentation that needs to be certified. So when we talk about UGPass, it's not for Nita alone. It's all of us being able to identify and authenticate and even e-consent. So the challenges we're seeing right now is that can we build platforms? Are we able to put the right rails in terms of the infrastructure that we build? And the Nita has done quite a job in that regard. But beyond that, we need to define the rules. And I've had, I think, the board chair and the honorable minister talking about, in many ways, the legal frameworks and the rules that govern the operations of these ecosystems. These are the challenges that we need to deal with right now. So what does the operational outlook look like in this regard? You notice that because we have to deal with ecosystems, we have to build rules that govern all of us. We have to be able to deliver services. So customer experience becomes critical, and it has to be delivered by all of us. Can you move to the next slide, please? And so in IT, we know that for us to build systems that work, we need to look at the people factor, the information technology and the data. We need to look at our partners, but more importantly, deliver the value streams and the processes that we're talking about. But how do you get there, and why should you get there? The why is really about the superior customer experience we're looking at. Because, like Collins here rightly said, the end user doesn't really care who is in the ecosystem and who is playing. They want to get a service. I've been in many of these banking halls, and the banks sometimes will have an issue, and they will say the URA system is off. The URA system is off. But at the end of the day, this person takes that because what they need to know is that their service has been delivered. They don't care really about who in this CIC is not doing their job. They just want to be able to pay for their passport. And so this superior customer experience is one of those subjects that we need to be able to discuss, talk about, to create this socio-economic value that we're looking for. The other things like extending reach. I think every one of us here is struggling with how do we take this service to Tororo, to Moroto, to Kabale, to Chisoro, everywhere. And our friends in the private sector have done very well in building distribution channels and agent banking networks that take these services to the last man in the village. How do we translate that same model and be able to deliver it within government services? Because they're needed up to the last point in Uganda. And when you think about these things, it presents a challenge for us CIOs. Number one, that all these technologies are talking about in the fourth industrial revolution. Number one, data analysis and AI. It sounds a buzzword, but in the bottom of it, it's really to be able to improve our decision quality. And the challenge we have for us in this room is how do we translate all these tech high buzzwords into business cases that are visible. So data analytics will help you with decision quality. Can we be able to state that clearly and how much value we'll deliver out of that? These robotics and process automation are largely about building efficiencies. Are we able to demonstrate how we're going to build efficiencies using these 4IR technologies? Cloud computing, ubiquitous and networks and Internet of Things. So we have sensors and a lot of connectivity. It's really about us being able to drive the cost of operations down and be able to expand the reach that we're talking about. I was privileged to be part of the team that actually crafted the first business case for agent banking. And I remember some of the numbers. It told us 500 million is averagely what a banking branch costs per month. A small one that has about 5 staff is about 300 million. But when we did the business case for a terminal, this post terminal, it came down to a very small margin. And so in comparison, every person who walks into a banking hall will cost about 10,000 shillings if it's a banking hall. On an agent terminal, it goes down 500 shillings. So in essence, the bank is better off serving you from an agent point than having you into a hall. That demonstrates reduced cost of service delivery, and yet at the same time you're expanding reach. So how do we use a terminal like that with a SIM card, with connectivity, to be able to drive down the cost of serving our communities? And of course, there's a lot of collaboration that we need to do because, like we said, these are ecosystems. We are building platforms, multiple players. And so how do we then begin thinking about the rails, how we build them, and the rules that we will govern all of us to make sure that we deliver a service? It's never done in one day. So in IT, we normally talk about this. What's the vision? state it. Where are we now? Benchmark. Where should we be? What are the measurable targets over the 5 years ahead that we're going to tick off every day? Can we be able to sit and say, how did we get there? Define the processes. And then be able to sit in a room like here and question, did we actually get where we wanted to go? Because as we take the steps and as we grow, we need to be able to see the value that we created and the wins that we're registering and celebrate them. So today I came here with my colleagues to celebrate how far these projects have come, but at the same time to think about how do we then harness what we've done so far and redefine socio-economic development, the technologies that we're delivering over the years. Because unless we monitor, I think our wise friends always say, if you can't inspect it, don't expect it. How do we monitor monthly, weekly, quarterly, yearly to make sure that we're actually causing development in the community? I thank you very much for listening.
Sometimes you don't need to wait for an introduction, and since I'm the next person, I just decided to take the seat. Good morning. I recognize the presence of Minister of ICT, Dr. Chris Baryomusi, Country Manager, World Bank, Ms. Mukami Kairuki, ED Nita, Dr. Hatweb Mugasa, government representatives from different ministries, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited to be here this morning. My name is Barbara Birunji Mtawazi. I'm founder of Hive Collab. Hive Collab is a business innovation and incubation space, so I work with young people. We started that around 10 years ago, and I can tell you one of our biggest challenges was connectivity. And that's actually one of the reasons we started the hub, to create a space where young people who are looking to build technologies that would support key sectors in our country around education, health, governance, finance, and agriculture, to provide them with a space that had affordable internet. Because that was one of the biggest challenges that they had. And also to bring other services to them in a central place. If investors were looking for young people to work with or to invest in, we wanted them to know that there's a space where they can easily be found. If academia is looking for ways to support innovators as young people leave university and they no longer have access to the facilities of the universities, we've created that channel, directly working with academia so that as young people are transitioning, they're not just looking for jobs which ideally didn't even exist, to create their own jobs. And as I was doing that, I found that there were very few women. And so I started Women in Technology Uganda with the aim of getting more women into the spaces, getting more women online, getting more women to build and also be users of technology. And over the last 12, 13 years, my work has revolved around connecting people, getting people to get online. So digital literacy for women, for girls in schools, across all the different sectors, really. And so I'm excited to be moderating this panel around harnessing connectivity and 4IR for social and economic development. Oh, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, a round of applause for my passionate friend, Barbara here, especially passionate about women inclusivity and IT. But we've just got a small request from the minister who needs to leave for some official duty. But before he does, he would really love to be able to address us. So I'm going to request Barbara just for a minute and ask us to put hands together for the ED just to return and do us the honors of inviting the minister, who will just give us his remarks before we can release him to go for other official duties. And right after that, we'll jump into Ms. Mtawazi's passionate panel.
Thank you. My work here is simple and to be very short. I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister of ICT and National Guidance, Honorable Dr. Chris Baryomunsi. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hatwib. He has promoted me to the Prime Minister. And the only comment I can make is that may God hear your words. The country manager, the World Bank, Madam Mikami, our friend, the chairperson of the board of directors of Nita-U, and the members of the board, the executive director, Nita-U, Dr. Hatwib, and all the members of staff of Nita-U, distinguished senior leaders in the government and the other agencies, ladies and gentlemen, in your respective capacities. You will forgive me for disrupting the program because I have some urgent assignment, but I will be fully with you up to the end in the spirit. When you become a minister, people write for you very long speeches and they imprison you. I will beg to get out of prison and just paraphrase the contents of the speech so as also to save on the time, since we have panel discussions and other speakers. So I am here on behalf of government and on my own behalf as a minister of ICT and national guidance. When I say government, I mean the NRM government. Now, the NRM government, many Ugandans who are old enough recall that we used to talk of the 10-point program, which was later expanded to 15, but sometimes also we reduced it to 4 ideological pillars on which NRM stands. And they are: 1, patriotism. We believe in patriotism. Number 2, Pan-Africanism. Number 3, democracy. And number 4, socio-economic transformation. So if they ask you what does NRM stand for, if you mention those 4, you will pass. And whatever we do as a government, we have to ensure that it fits and answers to those broad ideological goals. And that explains, for instance, when you look at the pillar of socio-economic development, socio-economic transformation, that explains the kind of investments we have made in the areas of education, areas of health, areas of transport infrastructure, extension of electricity, provision of safe water, and all these programs. Agriculture extension services, parish development model. So all the programs that we come up with are intentional, and they are guided by this ideology of NRM. We all now appreciate that ICT is a key facilitator of socio-economic transformation. And that's why the president and indeed the government established a standalone ministry responsible for ICT. Because much as we address different areas of development, but we all appreciate that technology is what is driving the development processes, and we wouldn't want to be left behind. And therefore, when we gather here to discuss the digitization agenda, the digital transformation agenda, we are fitting into those broad ideological goals of the NRM government. And I would like to start by appreciating all of you who have found the time to come and be part of the family of ICT, particularly to support Nita-U, that is hosting us as our agency, and also to appreciate the good work that you are doing, because this is the information and the communication family that is gathered here this morning. And therefore, on behalf of government, I would like to appreciate all of you. Now, having said that, when you examine the frameworks and instruments government has put in place, you will discover that ICT remains central. Whether you read the Vision 2040, whether you read the NDP3, whether you look at the NRM manifesto, the most recent, all of them speak to the fact that we should address the issue of digital transformation in order to have accelerated development in this country. And once again, I thank all of you, because this cannot be done by the Ministry of ICT and Nita-U alone, but all of us in the government, outside the government, private sector, all of us are working as a family to see that we attain this accelerated transformation occasioned by the digital agenda. We are gathered here to celebrate the achievements of the Regional Communications Infrastructure Program, CIP Uganda, and we want to salute Nita-U, which has been our flagship agency that has led us in the implementation of this program. I want to salute Dr. Hatwib and his team, Collins, and the entire team at Nita-U. Dr. Hatwib elaborated and highlighted the key achievements registered in this program, and would like to thank you. It is always good to start. It is always good to start, but it's even better to reach the finishing point when you have results, when you have successes to report. And that's why we have gathered here to celebrate you, to thank you for the great milestones, the great achievements that you have registered. And indeed, all of us appreciate that we have moved as a country. When you reflect back and look at what was happening in the 80s, early 90s, how we did our work in the government, how we communicated, there has been a lot of progress registered, courtesy of the efforts of all of us here, and we should appreciate the journey so far covered. Although we have covered a great length, I think more work has to be done. More work needs to be done. In the government, we still have to strengthen e-services, automation of transactions within the government and outside the government. When you go in the countryside and look at the decentralized government, the way things are done in the districts, local governments, there is work to be done. I want to thank Robert for the presentation that he has made on the fourth industrial revolution. We in Africa, Uganda inclusive, have been left behind by the rest of the world when it comes to these industrial revolutions. Whether you speak of the first, whether you speak of the second, the third, even the fourth. We're always trying to run to catch up. Like when you look at the second industrial revolution, that's when electricity came on board. But up to now, as a member of parliament, I'm still struggling to extend electricity to some communities in my district. And yet, electricity access should not be a big issue, but it is a big issue. So now we talk of the fourth industrial revolution. And the question that challenges all of us, that how can we move faster to catch up with the rest of the world? It's a big question which we must answer. As this technology revolution moves on, where are we on that wheel of revolution? Are we behind? Are we in the middle? Are we ahead? You can reflect on what answer we must give. And therefore, all of us must work hard, day and night, to ensure that we are part of this revolution. Recently, we took a policy decision in the government to enhance the salaries of scientists. And you can see how the country has reacted. And we've been very insistent in saying, no, science plays a critical role in socio-economic transformation. Not to say that arts and humanities are of less value, no, but we're saying it is a fact that science plays a critical role in socio-economic transformation. And therefore, it is important to motivate Ugandan students to uptake sciences, to motivate science officers to do more, as we also lift the salaries of the other workers. But it seems the point has not been well appreciated. One example that we use, for instance, is we had COVID-19, which is caused by a relatively new virus, the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. And it was puzzling scientists and everybody, including WHO. The World Health Organization had to commission a team to go to China to try to study this virus. And there has been a debate, how come the vaccines for COVID-19 have been developed so fast? Up to now, there are people who doubt whether the vaccines we are giving people are genuine vaccines, because they have been developed very fast. Because they say in class, we've been taught that the vaccine development is a lengthy process. It takes 10, 15 years. How come the vaccine has been produced so fast? One of the reasons why it has been easy is that, one, technology is now much more improved than in the past. And what helped was that when this virus hit China, the molecular biologists and virologists in China shared digitally what we call the viral genome. The genetic material of the virus was shared digitally across the scientific community. So it enabled scientists in the US, in Europe, to start working on it. So the scientists in China were not selfish. They shared this viral genome. And because of presence of these cutting-edge technologies, like supercomputing, gene editing, they were able now to work on the candidate vaccine, which was now tried on animal models and then human clinical trials so fast, and the vaccine came out. So technology helped. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, these technologies were not easily available, but now the virus came in an environment where technology has improved. So technology, the fourth industrial revolution, has been a facilitating factor to get this vaccine. So when the government of Uganda says we want to promote sciences, we are right, because it is scientists who helped us to get the vaccine to address the challenge of COVID-19, which was a real challenge. So that explains the decision why we think as government we should motivate scientists, we should promote the teaching of sciences, but without undermining those who are not scientists. I hope that one is very clear. I am sure musicians are very important and other people, but they couldn't play. Yes, they could communicate and tell us preventive measures for COVID, but it took the intellectual resources of scientists to come up with a vaccine. So basically that's the reasoning government is following, to say we should promote the teaching of science, we should motivate scientists, because through these innovations we are able to come up with solutions to most of the prevailing situations. I therefore hope that the arts and the humanities specialists who are here will not strike. You have now understood the wisdom behind the promotion of sciences, but without undermining those who study the arts and the humanities. Therefore, when we speak of the fourth industrial revolution, when you look at these disruptive technologies, as a country we must run and be part of that revolution, and we shouldn't be left behind. And that's why we engage in these discussions. And as a government, I want to give you assurance that we shall do all it takes to ensure that we are part of that revolution. We should not be left behind. I would like to thank the World Bank, because you've been a consistent and reliable partner to the government of Uganda, and I want to thank you, and could we give them a round of applause for the cordial and the brotherly, but these days when you say brotherly, you should also say sisterly relationship, for us to be gender sensitive, for the cordial and the brother and sisterly relationship you have with the government, and we shall continue working together. Like the country manager indicated, we are working on a new program, UDAP, and we are soon going to cabinet for approval and parliament, and we should be up and running in the few months to come, so that we work on strengthening the e-services, the government. There are also other programs lined up to extend the national backbone, the countryside, to do last mile connections, so that the districts, the lower governments, the local government institutions like health centers, schools, churches can be brought on board in terms of connectivity, because it's a challenge that we have to ensure that connectivity and access to digital services is addressed across the country. I'm sure investors like Yokesa, who are tourism and hospitality industry, you would want connectivity in those national parks, in those protected areas. And working with the World Bank and other partners, we are designing programs to expand access to internet, not only access, but also affordability, as Dr. Hatwib clearly articulated the journey we have taken in terms of reducing the cost of internet. So I would like to assure you, all of you friends and partners who are here, that the government of Uganda, through the Ministry of ICT, working together with the other agencies like Nita-U, UCC, and all those related institutions, we shall do everything possible to ensure that we address this issue of connectivity, access to internet, and most importantly, to be part of that revolution of digitizing the country, be part of that revolution of the fourth industrial revolution. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nita, for the program of regional communications infrastructure that, in our view, has been successful and has been completed 100%. And we look forward to more programs, partnership with the World Bank, to see that Ugandans can continue to get better services when it comes to IT and ICT. Thank you very much. May God bless all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, allow me indulge the Honorable Minister just to stay behind for a photo moment. I would like to invite the Minister, would like to invite EXCO, and our board as well. If we could just come to the front for a quick photo moment before we release the Minister for official duties. A round of applause for him one more time. And you can clap louder if you are scientists. So we'd like to have the World Bank, of course, our development partner, our AG and the EXCO team, together with our board. We can stand right here. In the meantime, in a special way, I'd like to thank all our partners who've been able to make this possible today. Key partners like Soliton, thank you so much. Huawei, Mantra, thank you so much. BreakTech, to mention but a few. And just to thank the Minister also for government support, I believe ED would like to extend a small gift from Nita. And I'll ask the team with a gift just to pass that on. Maybe if we could just do this at the front for accountability, so that they don't say they give the minister a gift under the table and people start questioning. We might even need to open it and find out what it is, but at least we shall trust it is something that is. This is on behalf. Yes. He needs to know the value. So, Mr. Edie, please let us know if it's above a certain threshold. Then we need to. Yeah, but we are absolutely compliant at Nita, and yeah, you can be sure it will not bring you any trouble whatsoever. And may the prophecy of the ED be upon you as the Lord pleases. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now jump into that panel discussion. If you see the minister leave, I think he's already explained, he'll just sneak out at will. But for now, I'll invite Barbara to come and do us the honors of inviting her panelists, right after which we shall have a tea break, and then one more panel discussion, and pretty much bring this to a wrap as we share a meal of lunch together. Barbara.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Yeah, before I invite my panel, I just want to thank Nita. All the hubs that I run, so Women in Technology and Hive Collab across the country, are right now connected to this Internet for Nita. And so the 10,000 plus young people that I work with every year say thank you so much. Allow me to invite a panel of distinguished gentlemen who are in their own right in their sectors leaders. And I would like to start with Edgar Kohimbisa, who is Information and Communication Technology Officer, Government and Security Programs, JELO Secretariat at Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Edgar, you're welcome. Mr. Amos Wekesa, Managing Director of Great Lakes Safaris Limited, representing the tourism sector. You're welcome. Mr. Bob Nwajira, Head of Communications and PR, Higher Education Students Financing Board, representing the education sector. Kindly join us. And last but not least, Mr. Paul Mbaka, Assistant Commissioner for Health and Health Information Management, representing the health sector. You're very welcome. Yeah, I'll just stay here. Yes, so we're talking about harnessing connectivity and 4IR. Thank you so much, Mr. Mtebi, for the explanation you gave about the 4IR revolution. And so we're talking about this across these four different sectors. And I wanted to start with you, Bob, in the education sector. And one of my questions is, so we very much recently had the pandemic, and we saw a lot of change in the education sector. We were closed down, but some students were still able to access education. We are looking at online classes. We are looking at a move to even virtual libraries and things like that. And so how have you in the sector leveraged learning or using technology in the education sector?
Thank you so much, and I hope it's still a good morning. In 2020, when COVID-19 came, it didn't give even the education sector enough time to transition. It came suddenly, and across the globe, about 1.2 billion learners were, sent back home. In Uganda, we had over 15 million learners, right from basic education to the highest levels of education, being sent back home, and the traditional teaching and learning examination was temporarily halted. And, for many of the sector players in the education sector, they are needed to have a quick transition. And you could see there were a little bit of some challenges for some others who had not invested very well, but because it is now also out as a business, many of them had to transition very quickly. And in a couple of months, we saw institutions changing very quickly, to virtual classrooms. We saw people bringing up virtual libraries, and education technologies started coming up. And here in Uganda, we had so many institutions which moved a little bit fast. Others were a little bit slow, especially in the government-sponsored, the government institutions. But most of those in the private sector moved quickly, and people were able to progress with their semesters, especially at higher education. There were a little bit of some challenges on the basic education, but the higher education sector progressed very, very quickly. But across the board, we have seen the transition and the adoption coming in so quickly post-pandemic. We have so many institutions which are offering online classes. Personally, I graduated a few weeks ago from the University of Nairobi, and for all the time I studied, I never stepped there. I only stepped there for graduation. We've seen technologies coming on board. Coursera, people are studying, able to access millions of qualifications from various universities across the world. So the transition is happening, and the infrastructure, most of the institutions that we see right now have opened blended programs. If you go to most of our institutions right now, we're having blended programs. So you can either study evening, you can study weekend, but also you can study long distance, because all these platforms are available. So I think COVID-19 came as a disruption, but also as that catalyst that threw the whole sector into adopting these technologies as, and we see this is the future. We see the final one on this one. I've been doing some part-time work at one of the universities, and it is completely a digital platform. And we are having students from Southern Sudan, Burundi, and they are all accessing programs on a university, from a university that is based in Bugorovi. So I think this is the future.
I totally agree with you. We've seen a lot of innovations coming up. Someone who works with innovators, there are so many that are even now are still coming up. However, I would like us to appreciate that there are so many challenges. So I wanted you to just touch a little bit on the challenges that you see us as a country having as we try to harness this.
Thank you. We, of course, just in the same way, it came fast. It didn't offer us enough time, and we're still buying some time to have people trained to be able to use some of these technologies. And then, of course, we have other bigger challenges in terms of internet access. You are thinking about some of your students who are in Bududa, trying to access, an exam that you're offering. The investment,
virtual library.
Exactly, the virtual library. And some of the institutions haven't really adopted complete sets. I can give an example, like in Uganda, in the higher education sector, we had only about 5 institutions which were able to successfully examine their students, online. Just a few of them, one which has a very super system that is able to use artificial intelligence even to switch you off if you attempted to look aside, or to open your desktop and open another browser. So there is still need for that investment to happen from these institutions. And of course, attitude. We still have a lot to do with attitude change, to make sure people accept that these are the new realities. And I think a few days ago, many of us were in shock when university students at one of the public universities went on strike, and they said, no, we want to study up close with our lecturers. And the university was trying to extend to make sure that students study from the distance. And they said, no, we want to come to the lecture room. So there is still need for some attitude change towards this.
Thank you so much, Bob. Really appreciate that perspective. I want to move on to the health sector. On to you, Paul. So time and again, we're looking at telemedicine, or hearing telemedicine. Is this thing real? First, tell us.
Thank you very much. Of course, telemedicine is real. It is not only real, it is also real in Uganda. And of course, recently there are some prominent organizations that have come up, like that provide these services. I'm sure you may have seen some of the billboards, very huge ones around, talking about remote care. But when you talk about telemedicine, what you're basically referring to is providing care remotely. So a patient is out there, and a doctor is not physically in your presence, but care can be provided remotely, taking advantage of ICTs. Of course, we are always forgetting the T when we talk about ICTs. But when you're talking about ICTs as a mechanism to provide care, things that you might do, they include remote consulting, they can be remote intervention. Sometimes operations can be done remotely. They can be diagnosis. It can be between 2 experts consulting. But it can also be messaging for reminders, or you giving feedback to your doctor because you are reacting to medicine and so on. And the mechanisms that are available to do this, you can do this by phone, and that's why I want to emphasize that sometimes we forget the T. But you can also use more digital means like video conferencing and so on. And in Uganda, of course, we have not nearly brushed the surface of the scale at which we need to do telemedicine, because telemedicine is more suited for settings like ours, where you have few experts, you have infrastructure that is not sufficient to enable travel, you don't have enough facilities. So if you have a mechanism that can allow you to provide remote care, you are in a good place. And of course, to do some of these things, you need infrastructure, just enabling infrastructure. And I think this is one of the things that we should really be celebrating today, because in the last 2 years, I think we're now bordering, okay, not bordering, but approaching almost 100 health facilities, and mainly the big ones that Nita-U has been able to connect to the national backbone. And now this makes it easy for us to tap onto these services. And you know, when you look at it as telemedicine, it is a bit narrow. But when you say telehealth, you're looking at mentoring health workers. You know, medicine is a bit like IT. If you stop capacity building, very soon you become uneducated. I'm sure those of you in IT know this very well. Technology quickly runs away. So the health workers have to be continuously mentored, otherwise they continue giving you chloroquine when everyone knows it doesn't work anymore. So through this remote care, and COVID really helped to boost the use, adoption, acceptance of these technologies. Previously there was hesitance. But because of COVID, we had no choice. So the adoption has been significant, and there is one prominent private sector organization. Within government, we are really at infancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. So, in your opinion, how is the Ugandan health sector prepared to embrace future technologies in extending clinical services across Uganda? How prepared are we?
Thank you very much. I mean, when you talk about future technologies, I mean, it is just as well that the ED used predictive analytics today to tell us that there is a pending prime minister in the room. In the health sector, there are so many reasons. And you know, human beings from the beginning of time have always wanted to know what is coming up. You know, if you read the Bible a bit, you can tell the book when Joseph was telling the Egyptians that there will be 7 years of famine and another 7 years of plenty. This is just peeping into the future. When Moses was saying the plagues are coming and so on, this is peeping into the future. Human beings have always wanted to peep into the future because it helps you plan. It helps you take advantage of the resources that you have. In the health sector, sometimes we have medicines where the patients are not. And you have patients where the medicines are missing. If you could tell where the patients would be, you could have taken the medicine to the right place. And we could do that using predictive analytics. We could, most of the diseases that we have in Uganda are to a large extent determined by the weather. If you talk about malaria, if you talk about these diarrheal diseases and so on, we see them following a similar pattern to our rain patterns. So if we can bring in data from other sectors, there is opportunity there. When you talk about taking advantage, of course, of artificial intelligence, drones for delivery, I'm glad my colleague Stephen from the National Medical Stores is here. One of the things we are exploring is to use drones to deliver in some of the remote facilities that we have out there. But of course, again, like I said before, an enabling environment. Previously, I was talking about infrastructure. But if you deploy a drone, it is going to be flying over Amos's house. So how do you control, how do you manage the ethical issues associated with adopting such technologies so that you don't abuse, you know, such opportunities? Of course, taking advantage of internet everywhere, you can facilitate monitoring of people's health. You know, many of you discover that you have cancer when you are stage 3, stage 4, and yet some of these cancer signs can be picked up very easily with just wearable devices. And you can go and check because a warning has been given to you. But if the internet is not everywhere, and because right now, you would only know that the internet is not everywhere if you try to deploy a fully digital solution. You know that the feature phone works there, but if you have a digitized device, it won't work. But if you had such mechanisms, people will start adopting these monitoring devices. I know most of you have these extremely expensive phones. You don't even use 10% of the functionality that you bought these phones for. And there's an opportunity here to take advantage of this for the purposes of your health. Of course, one more thing that I must emphasize, and it is important that decision support was highlighted in one of the previous presentations, is that we have mechanisms that collect data that can help us improve how we provide services. We collect this data and store them in some databases. And then we have these dashboards. And then we have managers who never go to these dashboards. And then you have developers who complain that their managers are not digitally literate. But all these managers have Facebook accounts. All these managers use WhatsApp. All of them are on Twitter. What does this tell you? There is a design gap. You cannot always blame people without designing for them to use. But if social media has taught us anything, is that there is relevancy in emitting data. You cannot wait for people to proactively seek information. Imagine I had to go into the Great Lakes Safari website to find out what offers are there. But if I go to my Facebook, the offers will pop up, and I will know that I could take this one up, I could take that up. If we cannot take advantage of these cutting-edge technologies to emit information to decision makers so that they don't have to go through complicated processes to find the data that they need for decision support. And the silver lining in being slightly backward in adopting, you know, when you go to the US, they have these copper lines that they established that is very elaborate. They're struggling to move to the next level, you know, all these 5G and so on, because they are not going to lose the investment they made. Now, for us, we have not invested significantly. We have an opportunity to jump right at the cutting edge without necessarily having to go through the different stages that other people had to suffer through. We have an opportunity here that we have a clean slate, but like many things that you will ever have to do, this requires serious governance, leadership, and so on. Because immediately you start doing these cool things, and technology has the problem of being ahead of regulation, you have the opportunity to do so many things that could be infringing on other people's freedoms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. I want to move on to Edgar. For all the time I've lived, it's not a very long time, but the time that I have lived, court has always been physical. Nothing online or anything. But in the recent last maybe 2 years, we are seeing virtual court cases. Originally, you had to, if you wanted to find a document on a case, an old case, you had to have a document person go and check for you until you come back in 5 hours or in 3 years or whatever. And now we are seeing even online filing of cases through a court management system that has been brought up. We are seeing a digital change or revolution in the justice system. And I wanted to ask you, what efficiencies are we gaining in this? How is this helping us be better as a country?
All right. Thank you, Barbara. Maybe let's just start by saying that justice is really a chain-linked affair. You know, most cases we look at the courts, but in fact, the thing is that most of our institutions are interlinked. Many of these cases begin in the police. They go through the DPP, end up in the courts, and then maybe end up in the probation offices, maybe end up in the Uganda Prison Services. So the idea here is that justice should be a chain-linked affair. Why? Because of the nature of our business processes, highly interlinked, and that is what we do in jails. We call it people-centered justice, but in this case, we're trying to implement what we call a sector-wide approach to access to justice. So the court certainly is at the fulcrum, it's the center of gravity when you look at access to justice delivery. But the idea here is that justice really begins at a certain entry point and then goes through an adjudication process. And if we're to digitally transform, we have to appreciate that. And it's easy for us to think about justice as a one-dimensional aspect, but when you look at it and blow it up, it becomes a bit more complex, a bit more dynamic. And from a people-centered approach, I think that gives us an idea in terms of how jailhouse institutions have endeavored to digitally transform. And one of those is, of course, through the ICMES that you've talked about. But I want to talk about the fact that justice is really experiential. It's about people's experience, their justice journey. When they get in contact with the justice system, what do they experience? It's not about winning a case, but it's about a fair outcome. The process of getting there, that's what gives people the confidence in the justice system. Trying to leverage technology to improve that experience. And thanks to RCIP, I believe that has given us what I call a stage, to set the stage, to set the foundation for us to be able to create digital realities. When you talk about e-filing, for example, you don't have to move to the courtroom to file a case. You can do it in the comfort of your home anytime. You don't have to move long distances to get status on your case file. You can log in on a phone, on a platform, and you can be able to get the status of your case. But there's very important aspects that we should talk about as well. The challenges that we face in jails really relate to issues of accountability, corruption. You've had instances of missing files. I'm sure that's something that we can all relate to. A file is missing in the registry, well, because there's little visibility. Someone has control over this file. But when we digitize, then we're able to create some sense of accountability and transparency. That particular officer, that particular magistrate is not going to really have control over this file because the supervisory roles and everything is sort of working within a digital ecosystem. And that roots out issues of corruption that we grapple with within the sector. And I think the RCIP has really set the stage for us to be able to realize our dreams as jailhouse institutions. Why? Because ultimately, we're not just trying to digitize the courtroom, but we're trying to digitize the prosecutor's office. We're trying to digitize the prison's offices. We're trying to digitize the police offices. And that, I think, gives us a very strong edge if we're to effectively move forward. I would just want to talk about something to do with socioeconomic transformation. No one wants to invest in a country that does not have a strong legal framework, but also that doesn't manage cases very well. So I think the efficiencies that we create by digitizing our court systems attracts investors because they believe that when there is a dispute, they'll be able to go to court and get fair outcomes very quickly. Justice delayed, justice denied. I think that concept rings true in this case. So RCIP has enabled us to create digital realities where we can be able to manage our cases more efficiently, more effectively, but for our communities, the people that we talk about, the ones who come to our institutions for services. How about if we empower them with information using these digital tools? They can be able to search for information, they know where to find these services, and I think that has set the stage for us to empower communities to be more resilient, but also to be more understanding and build confidence in our systems that when people show up in our courtrooms, when people show up in our institutions, they believe that they will be attended to. They may not get the outcome they really desired, but it's fair and it has come in efficiently and effectively. That's what I can say, that the value addition that digital transformation has brought to the justice system.
Thank you so much, Edgar. So what challenges are we seeing as we try to move to this step, and what measures are being put in place to address the challenges as they come?
Well, I would say digital silos. Like I mentioned, justice is a highly integrated affair. And what happens in the courts perhaps is a function of what has happened before in the prosecutor's office or what has happened before at the police office where a case was being investigated. So if you have a poor file, in other words, not well investigated, not enough evidence, you're not going to convince a judge to deliver a very fair ruling. And so the fact that digital silos in different institutions that are not integrated, I think that has been a challenge. What are we doing about that? I think the idea here is, how do we integrate these systems? How do we integrate policing systems with the prosecutors' systems, with ICMES and the judiciary, with the prisons, and not just those institutions that I've just mentioned, but also with institutions that deal with civil justice aspects like the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, NERA, and of course DCIC. All those are part of the jailhouse ecosystem that I talked about at the beginning. And so the idea is, as we move forward, and I hope this will be a focus of UDEP, that we can be able to integrate access to justice information systems, because at the very core of jailhouse, at the very core of access to justice, we are integrated by business processes. And so if we can be able to eliminate those digital silos, create integrated data exchange frameworks across the board, I think that will not only create efficiencies and effectiveness in terms of how we do our work, but it means that the public benefits more from the kind of work that we do because we're able to process cases faster, we're able to eliminate case backlog, we're able to create a sense of accountability and transparency across the board, not just in one institution, but across all our institutions. So I can point that out, and maybe lastly, I think the fact that jailhouse institutions are everywhere, they are all across the country, and it's very difficult sometimes to roll out some of these projects very, very last mile. You have immigration offices at the border points, you have courts in every district in this country, you have police stations, in about 100 and, we have about 1,000 police stations across the country. I've not talked about police posts, they're in thousands. So how do you effectively roll out systems in such places, even in remote areas. And so I think the solution here is for sure to innovate, and we're partnering with the private sector as well. We're trying to find new mechanisms, new partnerships to be able to deliver value in terms of how can we be able to reach people out there. So we don't create digital exclusion as we try to solve the problems that we face. So I think that is, our approach to the challenges that we face currently.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Thank you so much. I want to move on to the tourism sector. The tourism sector is a leading foreign exchange earner for Uganda. And we've had this statement being made about how Uganda is naturally gifted. Like, we all know that. And so I wanted to know, how are you, and so tell us about you, the players in this industry, how you are or what you're doing to exploit this in the digital era. How are you promoting us in the digital era?
First, I want to thank you for inviting me here. But I must first say that I'm just so impressed as a street hustler. The fact that government agencies are starting to work together. In fact, one of our biggest challenges why we're not a first world country is because government agencies have been working in silos. Everybody thinks it's so important, and therefore no one works with the other. They don't talk to each other. So when you're in such a room, for me, it gives me hope. And it's also nice just to sit with these very brilliant people, and I'm thinking, why aren't we a first world country? These guys are so brilliant. So sometimes I keep thinking, so where is the disconnect? Why is it that we cannot raise enough money to look after our own budgets? Our current 2022-2023 budget is what? 48 trillion. 60% of it is recurrent budget. 60%, which collect 60%, if URA would probably, out of 48 trillion, URA has probably the capacity to collect between 20 and 23 trillion, and the rest is money that is going to be cut elsewhere. And if you look at that, that is about $12 billion which tourism can bring in if we invested in the industry. And also, of course, just reminded me on Tuesday, on Monday I was talking to the guys of finance, and I was telling them that we need to borrow the Brazilian model. And the Brazilian model can wake up and say, these 5 years are 5 years of coffee. So they will make sure that the guys in the Ministry of Trade understand how to work with the market to do with coffee. Then they tell the Minister of Tourism, can you make sure that the tourists come in the country and take coffee? They tell the Minister of ICT, make sure that connection to all the coffee areas are done. They tell the Minister of Transport, make sure that access to the places that produce coffee are done. And that's how the idea of working together brings out growth for a nation. So it's nice for me to say that this looks really good. Tourism in 2019, because I must say 2019 because as I speak right now, we are just restarting business. For the last 2.5 years, we've done no business. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I personally went into diversification. I've just built up a plant called Pella, which is a highly efficient system for doing grains. We do about 18 types of grain. We're the first company in Africa to bring an aflatoxin scrubber, a machine that scrubs aflatoxins from maize, nuts. We did our first test about a month ago and removed aflatoxin from 159 ppb to 6%, to 6 ppb. And you know that human consumption levels for East Africa are allowable about 10, and animal consumption is 20. And so we're able to sort out that, but also we're also leveraging on technology. And I live here, I'm just going to be tapping into my phone, and I'll be able to see how much grain or which type of grain has passed through the machine. That's the value of technology, but the plant is in Soroti, so I don't have to be managing, as a CEO, I don't have to manage that plant from being on the ground in Soroti myself. So anyway, we are starting, and according to World Bank, which normally has smaller figures compared to WTTC. WTTC is the World Tourism and Travel Council. In 2019, Uganda earned about $1.6 billion from tourism. But I think according to WTTC, we went to about $2.2 billion from tourism. And the reality is that Uganda's tourism has not even started. We've not even touched 1% of the potential that we have. And I always tell people that we sit here and complain about poverty, but the reality is that we have the world's largest tropical lake near us in the city here. And hardly do you hear anybody speak about the value of Lake Victoria. World Bank itself has done research I read a report one time a few years ago about what Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania lose for an idle Lake Victoria. We lose about $63 billion worth of potential money that will be earned by through Lake Victoria, and that's through tourism, transport, and fishing. Those are three things. But we still complain about poverty as a people. We don't even discuss serious stuff. We're using technology sometimes to just abuse each other. We need to get young people getting to understand that just beyond us engaging ourselves negatively, we need to engage ourselves positively using the technology. Now, I could talk about, all of us know the potential. Why did this part of Africa come up? It was Churchill who rode a bicycle from Fort Portal all the way to Kampala, went across this country. And when he went back to England, he said, there is nowhere where too little will take you too far. It's a garden from south to the north, from the west to the east. It's a garden. It's Uganda. It's beautiful. That's what he was talking about. And he said, of all our possessions at the time, he was talking about the possessions of the British, there is nothing as great as Uganda. That's what he was simply saying. But are we using that discussion or whatever stuff he put forward for us to become wealthier? And so tourism has been largely left to people like myself. People like myself who failed in school. I don't have any qualifications to go to any of your offices. So if you're thinking about me joining you, I can't qualify. I failed my A-levels and so on. And the majority of the guys that entered the business were people that were once taxi drivers many years ago and slowly transformed into tour operations. And that has curtailed the growth of the industry, even just knowledge base. But I'm also seeing younger people coming into this space of tourism, and they're starting to understand how to position themselves using technology. I do a lot of positioning on different platforms. If you follow me on Twitter or you follow me on Facebook. But it's not only that, I've also been able to engage. If you look between April last year and this time, I've been able to make sure that at least 240 million people across the world read about Uganda. So I was in the Forbes Worldwide talking about how Great Lakes was turning 20 years in business last year. I was also talking about what makes us great as a people and a country. We brought in the Telegraph, we brought in so many newspaper guys writing during the COVID time to just continue to promote. But that also went digital and it really helped. And we're seeing a lot of results coming up through because of the push during the downtown. Because during the COVID time, technology became even more relevant to the world. But I must also say that we need to convince Ugandans that we have a great country and that technology can help us. When I entered, the gentleman in purple sitting there tells me, I had never understood about the beauty, I had never seen the beauty of the Renzoris until I started following you when you're going to scale it with Kapshenga. We went to, about 2 weeks ago, I was on the top of Renzoris, the most technical mountain on the continent. So the thing is that because we were there and we're sharing our examples, many Ugandans are actually right now climbing. As I speak, there are many Ugandans going to the top of the mountain. When Ugandans travel within Uganda, they don't necessarily add on the GDP because they're spending money that is already available within the country. But what they do is they redistribute resources. When Colin leaves Kampala and goes to Mbarara, he's bringing new money to the people of Mbarara. He's just simply redistributing the resources from Kampala to Mbarara. But also at the same time, when Colin shares his experiences online, it is not only Ugandans that see it. It will be Kenyans, it will be Tanzanians, and so on. And that's how the world is marketed. And any country to succeed in tourism, for example, you need 10% foreigners and 90% locals. If you look at China, 500 million Chinese move within China every single year, and only 53 million foreigners come into China. But then the value grows. So as a business, we've been able to use a lot of technology to be able to sustain our growth as a people. But I must also thank Nita for making sure that there is a focus on tourism. Tourism was never considered as a very serious thing. And I remember many years ago when I talk about tourism, I would say, but you're the only beneficiaries of tourism. And I used to laugh. When 1 million tourists arrive here, each of them will eat 2 eggs a day, for example. And if they're here for 8 days, each tourist will eat 16 eggs. Now do the mathematics, 1 million times 16 eggs. How many farmers are going to be affected? When tourists come into this country, they will eat pineapples. There's no sweeter pineapple anywhere in the world. Recently I was hosting a Nigerian billionaire, And I took him to Queen Elizabeth National Park. And he's into ships and ICT and different businesses and insurance. So I tell him, why don't you invest in Uganda's reinsurance, for example? He said, no, your economy is too small. In 2021, our total turnover in reinsurance was $98 million. And he said, I'm not even the biggest in Nigeria, but that is half 50% of what I turned over in Nigeria. He said, but I have never in the world eaten a pineapple as sweet as Ugandan pineapple. He said, one pineapple in Nigeria is $7 and comes from the Caribbean, not close to the sweet pineapple that Uganda has. So if I was Ugandan, I'll be thinking. He said milk alone in 2019, Nigeria imported milk worth $628 million and was getting it from France. He said, I wish I'm told you pour milk. Why don't you bring milk to Nigeria? So you see, it is, if we leverage on technology, started learning these things and reading and following up, things like that would be a fantastic thing. But I've been able to have 2 of my places on Nita network. Fantastic network. It's fast, it's efficient, but I would also like to say it's slightly expensive. I am hoping that you can cut the rates very soon. Yeah, it's actually expensive. For 2 lodges, I think I was paying about $1,800 a month. So if I paid $900 a month for the 2 lodges, I'll be very happy when I call in and the CEO of. I'm not advocating for myself, but for the total industry. I'm just a representation of what is happening. But so far, so good.
Yeah, thank you so much. What interventions do you think are required for the tourism sector in the context of connectivity and use of future technologies, so like virtual reality? What kind of interventions do you think we need in this in the tourism sector?
Well, the reality is that we need more people who are tech savvy joining the tourism industry. It's much easier actually if you understand internet, because I remember when I am BBC, I was born before computers, right? I'm 49 years old. And when I joined the tourism industry, I was a cleaner. I was an office messenger actually here on a company down here. That's about 20-something years ago. And one of my roles was to take replies to clients to post office. So I would walk to the post office in order to send a fax to a client in the UK. And it would take a number of days. Today, a tourist is extremely very impatient. If I have a team in my office that sit on the computer 24 hours, some guys work during the day, others in the night. What has happened is that the client is so impatient today. Even us here, we want information instantly, you know. And therefore, thinking about making information instant is a very key component to our growth as in tourism as a whole. The other one is, of course, that we will need is making sure that everyone understands that tourism is everybody's business. Why am I saying this? A lot of people have no idea how they actually connect to tourism. When a tourist comes here, if I have one group of tourists, actually this month I'm extremely full in terms of Great Lake Safaris, I can tell you the amount of fuel we take, the amount of food we eat, the amount of places we stay. So as Great Lake Safaris, I am only called a middleman. And I will personally will make maybe somewhere 3 to 4%. The company will make somewhere between 10 to 15%. But the rest of the money goes into the economy. Different guys are using internet, people are using all the types of stuff. We pay for all types of stuff. So it is important for this population to know that they're also part of tourism. And how do they connect to tourism? How do I know that in Mubende I'll have a place where I have clean toilets, I'll have a nice cup of coffee before I arrive there? Where exactly should I stop? These are things that we need to integrate within the technology for people to take advantage of.
Thank you so much, Amos. Before we close our session, I just want one last word from each of you. And I want you to look into 5-10 years down the road. Let's say I have this panel back here, and we have achieved much more than where we are right now. What are you telling us that your sector is doing differently in terms of connectivity and use of future technologies? Bob?
Thank you. I think when I look at 5 to 10 years, I see the education sector changing. And, with access, the RCIP was able to connect all the public universities, and students are able to access internet from their halls of residencies, from their classrooms, and they're extending this, to even the private universities. But I see a decentralized education system. Education has just been in one place where you just move to access the service, but I see decentralized education services. I see a growth. For instance, right now, currently, Uganda has been having one of the lowest, what we call the growth enrollment ratio between basic education and higher education. It's just grown by 2% in the last 5 years. We're at about 8.1%. The number of students who end up in higher education, those who started from basic education. So with more access to education, with more access from the remote areas, then we can see the growth enrollment ratio increasing. And we have, the education sector is opening up to support even other sectors. For Mr. Wakesa here, it's good to note, like, I work for the Higher Education Student Financing Board, which has literally for the last 8 years been supporting only science programs. And because of the contribution of the tourism sector this year, they are opening up to support all tourism and hospitality programs. And so there is this recognition, access to data, access to technologies, and I think 5 to 10 years, we might see many young people accessing education, but also not only from the places where they've been getting it, but in a wider spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, let me have Paul, then Edgar, and then lastly, Amos.
Thank you. I think I'll focus on just the issues that really put the convener on the spot. I think in 10 years, the Ministry of Health would benefit significantly if all the government-owned health facilities are connected to the national backbone for reliable internet to really enable us to consume all these digital services that some people think is a dream. That we recognize that, of course, bad health is caused in other places. You can imagine COVID came from a fish market. And I see an opportunity with the UG Hub to have information asymmetry. We can enable us to really pick information from other sectors to enable us provide better health services. Thank you.
All right, Barbara, when I take a little sneak peek in the future, I see a justice network. I see a data-driven justice network, because justice is a decision-driven affair, like I said. I see a future where artificial intelligence is being leveraged, not in making decisions, but in helping judges make decisions very fast, very effectively, very efficiently. I see data-driven law enforcement, where police officers are able to prepare case files very quickly, very fast, and have them up for prosecution and adjudication. Leveraging the UG Hub, that's the future that I see for justice institutions. Yeah.
Amos?
If we change the way we think, the way we act, and of course our biggest challenge as a country is we're inward looking, we're not externally looking, and technology can give us a chance to actually look at the opportunities available beyond our borders. We will never grow if we think that we're going to grow within ourselves. We can only grow if we think about the opportunities available in the world. I can give you an idea. This year in April, World Tourism and Travel Council released a report which said in 2022, tourism is going to earn $9.6 trillion. So in the whole world. Now, as Uganda, we should be sitting, if the world is going to earn $9.6 trillion, how do we get $12 billion out of the $9.6 billion? And in 10 years, the predictions are that the world will earn about $15 trillion. So now we should be thinking, in 10 years from now, Uganda should be able to make at least 30 to 50 or $100 billion from just tourism, because if there's anything that God has given us, is the opportunity to attract people to spend money in this country through tourism.
Thank you so much. And from all that you are saying, just to close off, I think for us to be able to truly harness connectivity and use of future technologies in the country, there are three things that I feel we need to do. One is digital literacy, ensuring that right from the grassroots, people are actually educated and they can use these technologies. Two, again, to Amos's point, is lowering the cost of that access. The internet, while NITA is working towards, I know they're working towards reducing the cost even further. We definitely need that. And then the third one is affordability of devices for the people to actually be able to afford these devices. And then the most important one is ensuring that women are at the forefront of this. Thank you guys so much and have a lovely day.
You can always trust Barbara to slide in the women's agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, a bigger round of applause for the panel. I believe they're all absolutely equal to the task and they have done a good job. I like what Wekesa said. 1 million tourists each eating 2 eggs. Everyone has a role. Everyone is going to get a small piece of that pie. But ladies and gentlemen, right now we're going to allow for a short tea break. We have a little snack and something for you to bite on. But we'd like to make this a working tea. So you're welcome to just go out at will, maybe have a short bathroom break if you like. And in 10 minutes, we'd like to gather back here and have our final panel discussion, which I'll be moderating in a short while. So for now, let's the DJ to give us some music. Tea break is served. straight to the point. And for this particular panel, Digital Transformation Journey, Uganda's Perspective, Pre and Post-COVID. Basically, we just want to look at what's the current state of affairs of things right now, and what are we hoping for in the foreseeable future. The team earlier on with Barbara, I think, was painting a more futuristic picture, but yeah. And so to join us on this panel is an in-house team from Nita. Of course, Noah is not really Nita, but it works very closely with us, and he'll be joining us as well. So in no particular order, allow me ask you to put your hands together for Richard Obita, Director Planning, Research and Development, but also the project lead, if you like, for RCIP. I think Richard would have preferred a better round of applause. He's a very important man. And Barbara, next I'll have a lady. So let's put our hands together for Stella Alivatese, who is the National Personal Data Protection Director. And we all know personal data is a serious issue. Yeah, maybe you'll sit in the middle so that we balance it out very well. Aha, very good. And we'll also have Mr. Colin Bavirukam-Mugasha, who is, of course, the Director, E-Government Services. Colin, you're absolutely welcome. And last but not least, Noah. Noah is going to be coming, Head of Technology Business at Crypto Savannah, and a board member of the Blockchain Association of Uganda. You're absolutely welcome. And you can sit right there. And I guess I will be joining the team. You have a minute to unwrap your water in case you'll want to sip it in the course of the discussion. And just to kickstart the discussion and to double that as a mic check, I'll just allow for each one of you just to quickly introduce yourself and give a small remark about RCIP. So I'll start with Noah over here. So just turn on your mic. Just tell us a little bit about what you do and in what capacity you sit on my panel.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Noah Balesambu. I wear many hats, but the one that's relevant to this panel is that I also chair the National Information Security Advisory Group. This is an echelon organization that looks out for cyber risk at the country level. So the membership consists of all critical infrastructure operators, and our role is to make sure that Uganda is safe online. Yeah.
All right, awesome, very important. Stella, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here and to celebrate with Nita-U the successes that have been gathered under the RCIP project. I'm currently the National Personal Data Protection Director, and I head the Personal Data Protection Office, which is a statutory office set up under the Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019. This office has a unique standing within NITA. It is an independent office as provided for under the law, but within NITA, Uganda. I'm glad to be here, especially as we discuss the successes of RCIP, because I know RCIP contributed to improving the enabling environment. The enabling environment in many cases includes laws and regulations and policies, and these laws and regulations also supported the development of personal data protection in Uganda and privacy. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Ronnie, and thank you everybody for coming this morning. My name is Colin Mugasha Babirukamo, and I'm the Director for E-Government Services, and my role is really to make efficient public services and move them online. If every public service that you see our people queuing up for struggling to access, moved online, I would have done my job. I think I'd be ready to move on to another role. But I think that's my job. My job is rising up every day, thinking about the citizen. How can we make their lives easy by going and moving citizen services online? So I'm really happy that RCIP really did the building blocks, and I will talk about that, and the director is also here. But RCIP did lay the building blocks for e-governance to work. Connectivity, regulation, I think as Stella says, infrastructure, data centers. Now that we have the foundation laid, we need to talk about e-services to the citizen. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Brilliant. And last but certainly not least, Richard.
Yes, thank you. I'm also glad to be here. Of course, my name is Richard Obita. I am the Director of Planning, Research and Development with Nita-U, and also double as the acting RCIP coordinator, and to which, of course, we are celebrating success this morning. And we are glad to have all of you here this morning to celebrate with us. Under the Directorate of Planning, of course, we are in charge of budgeting, integrating, of course, all these plans in alignment with the NDP3. Of course, the minister earlier on hinted on the manifesto, which, of course, has elements of ICT, and of course, the digital Uganda vision. As the Director of Planning, of course, we integrate all those aspirations of government to fit within our activities. And of course, the success of RCIP is indeed one of the, of course, government prioritized project. Thank you.
All right, and just to guide us all, I'm going to have a question or two for each of you, and then maybe if time allows, we'll also open it up to the House. But I'd like to also acknowledge the online presence, and your comments and contributions will be coming through to me as well. Obita, I think I'll start straight away with you, as you've been the coordinator. The theme for the commissioning is Uganda's digital transformation journey, unveiling the milestones of RCIP. Why did you choose this theme?
Thank you, Ronnie. Of course, we chose this theme. One is because we are accountable to the people who have given us responsibility, and of course the citizens, and of course government. So we chose this theme to, of course, account, and then also the other thing is that we also needed to look back and see indeed where did we come from, how far we've come, of course, with this project, and digitization generally in our country. So that is the reason why we came with this theme. And of course, as you know, Uganda has had great strides in terms of ICT. Of course, within the region, we are doing well in terms of connectivity, in terms of where we've come from, right from about 1998, when, of course, the ICT sector was liberalized, to bring in new entrants. And we saw competition coming in, healthy competitions, that has enabled us to drive digitization in the country. Along the way also, we've seen quite a great number of reforms. And one of them, of course, the formation of the Ministry of ICT and other agencies that came up along the way, like Nita-U, UCC, Posta Uganda, UBC, and all these, we've seen that transformation. And we are part of this, and that's why we want to share with you this morning the great strides that we've made as a country, but also as a sector, as the ICT sector, with all your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe over to you, Collins. In your remarks, you said, your job is to think about the citizens, Muntu Wawansi, and how they're faring, and as far as technology and all is concerned. What does the government CIO, what is NITA's role, or we've had disruptors. Technology is a disruptor. We've had negative disruptors like COVID-19, that was a disruptor as well. And so my question to you is, what is Nita doing to reconcile disruptors for the benefit of the common good of the Ugandans?
Thank you, Ronnie. We actually have a term now, not even omuntu wa wansi, naye omuntu wa bulijjo.
Omuntu wa bulijjo.
Because they are really, our people in a sense, and they need equitable access to the services we enjoy here. We enjoy power, we enjoy electricity in terms of access of mobile phones and internet. That needs to permeate to all our people in every corner. But let me just speak to this COVID disruption. I think, and I believe, and all of you here will attest to the fact that the whole world was disrupted. I think the WHO was trying to follow, learning by the day, how this was disrupting from a health and research perspective. But also from a technology perspective, the whole world was trying to catch up. So if there was anything good about the pandemic time, when we were locked down, I think the big bonus was technology actually advanced.
Yeah.
The uptake for technology was high. The appetite for efficiency was high. And we were forced to do it anyway. Sometimes you couldn't move and you needed to access services. So the government was disrupted. You can imagine how, I see many government CIOs like me. You know how we enjoy our tea and our chapatis before the meetings. There was no chapati and tea, for the meetings. They sent us a link and said, the link is there, please get on. There's no traffic jam. There's no chapati. But there's no traffic jam excuse now. There was no coming late because you had a story. You simply had a link, you clicked it, and you presented, and we had a meeting. In fact, government became more efficient. We had 1 hour meetings with very major meetings. That 1 hour Zoom effective meetings that typically took 4 hours if we had physical seating, again, because of our mandazi, chapati, and our African tea, which I love, by the way, but this was a disruption, so we had to get on. We had churches disrupted, and they quickly had to think about how to use technology. In fact, some churches that did not think quickly about how to catch up with technology closed down. My village church in Rukunjiri, the pastor said he had gone back to farming. He went back to looking after some animals and said, I can't access the people. And so we had to have a chat about how he could do it. But there are many barriers. When you tell people in Rukunjiri to go on Zoom, you're asking for many things. Do they have access to the internet? Do they have smartphones? And so I was asking for a lot, but I was thinking, these are the things we need to do quickly as a government. So there was disruption there. Again, schools were disrupted, and we quickly had to walk in. So in a nutshell, Nita Uganda had to step in during the pandemic. For instance, just providing Zoom licenses to the government, which they're still using today, was a big game changer just for business continuity. Because for a moment, the government had stood still. You can't drive, you can't move out, you can't access offices. Does the government stop? I mean, how do you continue? So just providing Zoom licenses alone for video conferencing was actually a big game changer that Nita and UNDP worked together to do. In fact, we had a meeting last week, Ronnie, as I sort of summarize. We had a meeting with Zoom and were saying, what else can we do with you? And we are going to work on a strategy for voice and video for the whole country to see how messaging can be leveraged better for an efficient government. But maybe 2-3 things quickly. We set up a government cloud system, a data center that you've heard about. We had anticipated that the capacity we had would last us about 3 years. In the first 4 months of COVID, government entities woke up to e-services. In fact, at some point, many CIOs are here. When they called us for capacity in the data center, we actually had none. Because we thought we had capacity for 3 years. But in 3-4 months of the pandemic, every CIO, every accounting officer, ministers were all talking about e-services. How do we support the people without them coming? And I think that's the point. We must go e-services. We must take the government to the people rather than the people lining up and coming to us. So a government cloud, internet services also were key to the last mile. I won't belabor that. The cost of a smartphone, I was talking to the country manager of the World Bank and saying we need to work on the cost of a smartphone. If every Ugandan had cheaper internet, and a more affordable smartphone, $30 and under, would be going a long way. In fact, the penetration of internet now is really spreading wider simply because of smartphone and social media. So let's get a cheap, affordable smartphone, and I know Huawei is here and other providers. Affordable smartphone in the country. Let's lower the cost of internet, and we should be able to drive the penetration of these services. I could talk all morning about this.
I can see you're absolutely passionate about this. Thank you so much, Colin, and thank you for the organizers, at least for this meeting. There was some chapati and mandazi, so shouts out to all our sponsors. Since we're looking at the state of affairs of things right now, I'm just going to jump over to you, Noah. And could you just paint for us a picture? What is Uganda's current position? I don't know if there's a ranking or what, at least in Africa, in relation to cybersecurity, and how are we, or how is Uganda positioning herself to measure up, with technology development as a nation?
Okay, thank you, Ronnie, for that. I would not talk about a ranking per se, because I feel that rankings they're irrelevant in some way. It's like, you don't go to hospital and who is the most sick person, can we put them in ranks? No, cybersecurity is a global concern. Whether you're 2 ranks ahead of someone else doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is awareness, and that's something that the government has been very keen on, and it's the first line of defense. The weakest link in any system is the human being. You can protect systems all you want, buy all the fancy antiviruses, put your intrusion detection systems. Everything will work like clockwork until a person switches it on and brings in an infected flash disk. And then all your investment, millions of dollars worth, is rendered useless. And so the first line of defense is protecting the person. How do we protect people? How do we get them aware? I have been fortunate, or in some cases unfortunate enough, to see the long evolution of cybersecurity in Uganda. I started out in 2004. When you talk about cybersecurity and you get a confused look. And to the point now that we have cyber laws, we have now the evolution of what is the National Information Security Strategy. It's now becoming the National Cybersecurity Strategy, meaning we are evolving. And so when you compare to the other countries in Africa, we are not doing too badly. The last 2 studies put Uganda in the top 10 on specific criteria that we are implementing as government to make sure that citizens are protected online. But ultimately, those are just interviews. They talk to people and ask them what they're doing. Ultimately, it's exactly what's happening on ground. Are people aware of the cyber risks that are out there? And as you know, one of the things that the pandemic showed us is that there was a huge gap. I mean, Collins was passionately saying how government is benefiting going online. I remember when we were getting ready for CHOGM, and we put a fiber network in Kampala, and every government entity had a video conferencing terminal, making sure that government is going to be more efficient online. We are going to, video conferencing is going to be the thing. Ministry of ICT rolled out the fiber, and it was hardly used. Immediately after CHOGM, it went off. But in 3 weeks of lockdown, every government entity was on Zoom. And so, yeah, the pandemic, with the sad realities that it brought, it was a wake-up call for us. There was a wake-up call that, we need to digitize. And and even the SME woke up, the SME industries woke up, because you see, we are losing out on a lot of revenue globally because our SMEs are still analog. And so it doesn't make sense for government to be digitized, and yet we're leaving out the engine of the economy in the analog stages. So we have to do this together. But the thing that we also have to be very keen on is that as fast as we went online, a thing that we missed again was being secure. So security was an afterthought. When your entire organization is online, and now it's only, hey, we need to protect, we need to protect ourselves when you're getting hacked left, right, and center. And so those are some of the awarenesses. How do we bring in, and we were talking recently at a Nita event, talking about security by design, not by afterthought. Because security is usually the afterthought. It's like, hey, okay, we need to secure the system after it has been deployed. But how do we be secure? How do we employ security by design? And these are some of the things that Nita has been building awareness. Again, letting people know that these things are out there. Local innovation. There are about 5 cybersecurity organizations in Uganda. That's poor. If you don't have a strong private sector, government can't protect everyone online, So there's only so much we can do. If you have a weak private sector, you have a weak link in the chain. And so these are some of the things that we are trying to build out. Yes, we're doing well when it comes comparatively to other African states. Many of our services are online. You can apply for your passport online. You can apply for your driving permit online. Those are huge steps. But then there needs to be the next step of how do we better secure the next millions of Ugandans that we are bringing online so passionately. How do we make sure that they understand the basics of cyber hygiene? You know, in school, as early as nursery school, you're taught about, health hygiene, wash your hands after that, before eating a meal, brush your teeth. There are simple steps that you're told to keep a healthy body. These things can be taught to our children, even when it comes to being healthy online. How do we apply simple cyber hygiene methodologies to make sure that these young people are online? And why the young people? It's like teaching the people in this room is already too late. We are by no means a representation of the population of Uganda. The average Ugandan is 15 years and below. And so how are we preparing them for the future, of a connected future? And so that's where the education should start. Not with people who first see a laptop on campus, but people who see laptops and are doing them in kindergarten, in primary. Because this is where the world is. If you're to compare yourself to the average South Korean child who first learns how to program when they are 9, and then the average Ugandan who doesn't know what programming is on campus, you can't compete in the same job market. And so cybersecurity has to start in the young people, teaching them the simple basics even as they grow and get online.
Wow, thank you so much, Noah. I'll now move over to Stella. According to Noah, most people here are endangered species. You are not, you're not the target audience in regard to this. And he's talking about cyber hygiene, but let's talk about personal data. Personal data is very, very sensitive, and yet, floated around without caution or care. I've been guilty. One time I posted my national ID, the name showed everything, and I don't even know what the post was really about. I think I was celebrating that I'd finally got it or something. And people had to warn me and say, my friend, this is your personal data. So I'd like to hear from you, Stella. What's your office mandate on how to monitor the misuse, the abuse of personal data, and what are you guys doing about this?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ronnie. Indeed, the issue of personal data is very important, not only to myself, to everyone who is here, to every human being in Uganda. Colin and Noah talked about some of the effects of COVID. Many of us went digital. It wasn't only government, it included the private sector. In our homes, I remember all my children were on one form of ICT platform or the other. I needed to create spaces where I was a very strict parent who would not allow a smartphone for my 11-year-old. I had to assign her one because she had to attend class. I had to provide a laptop. Of course, I'm still struggling to get back that smartphone, having released my powers. Of course, with all of us going digital, there's a lot of information that we create. And that is one of the reasons why personal data protection and privacy are very important. Now, the abuse does not only start from the organizations that collect. It doesn't start from government or the private companies. Most of the time, the abuse starts from people like Ronnie, who are celebrating getting their passport and they display the information. As I was seated there, I was Googling how much data we create, especially when I think it was Robert who spoke about the issue of big data. We create a lot of information. Now, these were statistics of 2018, and they were saying in 2 years we had created 90% of the data in the world. That was before COVID, and that was 2018. You can imagine what is happening right now. Now, in many cases, most of this data is actually personal data. Part of it, maybe 50 or even 60% is personal data. Hands up, how many of us are on social media? Of one form or the other.
Even this endangered species, we are all there.
Indeed. So you can imagine if the endangered species are all on social media, what is happening to our children? And they are the bulk of our population. Now, the bulk of the data that we create is actually from those social media handles or channels. So people are posting photographs, they are posting their locations, they are posting anniversaries, they are posting birthdays, and it's even addictive in some cases. I have some friends who wake up and the first thing they will share is, I had coffee at this location. Lunchtime, you know where they are. They quarreled with their boss, it comes on LinkedIn. In the evening, everything is, out there. But of course, it creates a lot of dangers for them and even for the people around them. Because we do not only create data about ourselves, we also push out data about people around us, our families, our friends, our work colleagues. So as an office, our mandate is to ensure that we regulate the collecting and processing of personal data. And we do that by ensuring the implementation and enforcement of the Data Protection and Privacy Act. Under the law, we have a number of functions that are prescribed by the law. We can do investigations, we do audits, we create awareness, and awareness is very important. Recently, a friend of mine, he does research in the medical field. He works with the School of Public Health. So he was telling me, oh, this is actually very interesting. We need to make sure that when we sign these donor agreements, we must make sure that we protect the information that we get from our customers or clients. But then he also gave me an example. He said, when a traffic officer arrests a taxi driver, they go chest stamping that I gave them my copy. I still have the original. But remember, that copy has all the information this police officer has. So if they are to misuse it, or if they really want to track you down, it's just because they don't have maybe the resources or the time, but they can track you down. Because remember, your NIN is now connected to your telephone number. Behind your NIN, your place of birth is there, your parents, your children, almost everything. When you go to a bank, the first thing they ask you is for your NIN. So someone can even trace your financial records by just having your NIN. So our office ensures that organizations that collect, even when that police officer receives that photocopy, they should make sure they use it for purposes of enforcing, not anything else. So we are there to check, to enable organizations comply. There are many things that we are doing right now. Because we are still very lean on the ground, we are encouraging a lot of self-assessments, compliance that is done within the organization. So we are focusing on developing tools that enable organizations to apply these principles where they are. And then, of course, we are using a lot of digital channels to create awareness. We have monthly webinars, and I hope the CIOs have attended them. Every last Wednesday or Thursday of the month, we have a webinar where we talk about topical issues on personal data protection. I could say a lot, but I know we are standing between us and lunch, so I'll keep quiet.
Well, thank you so much, Stella. And my job here was just to really open this up. But if you have relevant questions in the audience, maybe one of my colleagues, Patrick or someone, can help me with that. But we have an online audience, and some of those questions are starting to come through, which I'm going to throw at a few of you here. Or someone calling himself Martin Bauer, Jack Bauer's cousin. Says Nita and UCC, who regulates who? And how best can our internet costs be leveraged to fit and suit the lower cadres? Bauer is really concerned and he wants to know who to address. Who regulates who? Colin, should I give this one to you? Or we have a lawyer here. Yeah? Stella.
Colin has taken advantage of me because I'm here to talk about personal data protection. But yes, I have a long history in the sector, especially in developing many of its laws and regulatory frameworks. Now, that question is a question that normally comes up, especially when people want to understand who is Nita and who is UCC. We do not, I can't say UCC regulates Nita or Nita regulates UCC. It depends on the service that we are providing. For instance, UCC regulates all the telecom providers. As you know, Nita has the role to roll out and implement the national backbone. That is a telecom infrastructure. So for us to comply with the laws of this country, Nita gets a license. So Nita is a licensed provider, and that license comes from UCC. Now, when it comes to issues to do with personal data protection, UCC is a data controller. So they are required to register with the Personal Data Protection Office. So our roles are complementary depending on the service that we are providing. What is evident is that we are all within the same sector. We have one parent, which is Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, and our roles are complementary. On the issue of the cost of internet, yes, the cost of internet, obviously because UCC licenses the telecom providers, they have a say in how we do this work, ensuring that we give good quality and ensuring that when we price, we do it within the regulatory regime that they've provided that is available to not only Nita, but is available to all the other service providers, such as MTN and Airtel. Thank you.
All right. Maybe before I go back to Noah, I'll ask Obita or Colin, maybe just to paint a picture, for the audience and the public to know what really is the role of Nita. What's our mandate? Because some people, when internet goes off, they want to call Nita. My network is off. Who should they be calling? Maybe just paint a picture, Obita. What exactly is Nita's role in this game?
Yes, thank you, Ronnie. Nita-U was established under the ministry as an entity mandated to champion, of course, in general terms, digitization of the country. Amongst our roles, of course, it is provision of first-level technical support to all government entities. And in line with this, of course, we have a network operational center where all the MDAs, local governments, and all customers on the backbone that are connected to us or through the backbone can, of course, get support. The other thing, of course, is the IT service desk. This is directly with us. And, of course, here, again, of course, also to provide some level of support. The other role, of course, is the development of standardization, of course, in line with the international standards. Of course, we work closely with Uganda Bureau of Standards to develop IT standards. And, of course, we do support entities to implement And again, also in matters of information security, we are also there as one of our roles as an entity. We also support government entities in ensuring quality, provision of quality IT services. And amongst them, of course, is the internet. And from the previous panelist, you had the testimony of some of our services. Of course, we've come a long way with our services, and I believe in my previous roles, most of the CIOs here, I think in one way or another, we've touched base on connectivity. And so we do provide services. We do provide support in terms of hosting, and of course, which will lead eventually to the National Data Bank, and as one of the key areas that we will, of course, provision. The other area, of course, is areas of research in terms of where do we see the country going. We've talked about 4IR in the morning, and I think it is a good discussion for us to look forward and beyond what we've done under RCIP. In a nutshell, that is what Nita-U does. And of course, apart from maybe something which I possibly left out, one of our functions also is to do certification. You realize many of, and I think it ties well with what you are talking about, where do we run, where does the public go if there are any matters of IT specifically. Previously we had guys from Chikubo here walking into our offices and telling us, we've bought these computers, they're not working, who arbitrates some of these things. Of course, we have developed a framework, and we are the service providers, whether you're a supplier or consultancy services, you're required actually to register and be given a certificate to operate in this space. And why are we doing that? It's to bring sanity within the ICT sector, and of course to bring standardization, to bring quality services across the board and for the good of our citizens. Yeah.
Thank you, Abita. I think it was prudent for the public to know what NITA's real mandate is. But just to throw a specific question to you, Noah. The goal of this digital transformation journey is to have 24-hour, 24/7, 365, online presence, and of course that further exposes us to unknown threats, and as far as your sector is concerned. Could you just walk us through briefly what are government's initiatives to create awareness and also counter any possible threats as RCIP is doing very well? How are we countering the threats that success comes with?
Thank you, Ronnie. When we look at digitization and going online, that's a trend that is here and is here to stay with us. And like I previously said, one of the things that needs to be at the forefront of our mind is how do we protect ourselves online. And so the principle, there are three main principles when you're talking about cybersecurity and safety online. You have people, you have processes or policies, and technology. And so on all three fronts, government is doing something. When it comes to people, over the last, maybe say a decade, there's been an intentional effort by government to not only train the CIOs and the people within the IT departments of different MDAs, but also to hire specific skill sets for the IS role, the information security role. For those who might wonder what the difference is, the difference between an IT professional and an IS professional is the same difference between an accountant and an auditor. They both deal with numbers, but they look at it from different perspectives. And actually, by international standard practice, they don't even work in the same department. They are in different departments and they report at different levels. Why? So that you can have assurance. The IT role is to make sure things are running smoothly and the systems are operational. The IS role is to make sure is a check and balance of that process, to make sure that the things are safe. And so government has started doing what we call segregation of roles as part of our ISO 27000 compliance. This is a requirement. And so those are some of the things to make sure the system is in place. And then also just awareness. Like I said earlier, the weakest link in any security regime is the people. And so NITA and together with the NISAG have been going on, with awareness campaign, the Be Safe Online campaign. I'm sure you've been seeing that on social media. And so that has been rolling out, and it's going to be ramped up even as we go ahead and scaled across the country. Just making sure people understand the safety precautions of being safe online. Like I talked about cyber hygiene, dialing this down. You see, the problem with IT people is like we talk in code. And so when you're talking to people, people don't understand what they say. When you say servers, they see money. But then they forget that we have to dial down, we have to dumb it down and understand what safety means. The same way you talk to a child when you're sending them to the shop. When you reach a road, look left, look right, look left. If there is no cross, that one didn't presume borders, but the Ugandan context, the Ugandan context in place. And the same confidence you have sending your child to go and buy bread from the shops is because you have invested some awareness and some knowledge. And so the same process has to go even when we are talking about online. The same confidence and knowledge that you will allow someone to go online is because you have taught them certain practices beforehand. And so both adults, children, awareness is important. The second pillar is processes and policies. And as Collins has mentioned, and even Stella, there have been advancements. I mean, the first major milestone was in 2010, 2011 when we passed what we call the cyber laws. So the Computer Misuse Act, the Digital Signatures Act, the Electronic Signatures Act. All these were a hallmark in trying to bring policies and processes and frameworks to allow us to start maximizing the use of these technologies and to also act on responsible usage of these technologies. You see, unfortunately, human beings, we are good at innovating, but now we fall victim to the things that we innovate. And so that's why we need these laws to help us keep ourselves in check. So another thing that government is doing has been putting in place the necessary regulations and policies for responsible use of these technologies, and also to put in measures. So when someone contravenes, when someone uses technology for a nefarious activity, they are brought to book. One of the things that I have had to endure is presenting evidence in court, and that process is very interesting because you're presenting evidence and it's supposed to speak for itself, but when the judiciary system doesn't know what a hard drive looks like or what an image looks like, you're talking about a data image, they're looking for a picture, but you're talking about a digital representation of the machine that was involved in a crime. So just that awareness and making sure that digital evidence can be presented in court and accepted. So those policies are needed there. And then finally, technology, putting in place the right systems and tools to protect from outside actors. So at all these levels, Uganda is doing something. And then finally, from a structural perspective, when you look at Uganda as an economy, there are certain players that are more special than others. Sorry to use that term, like in animal farms, some animals are more equal than others. But there are certain players, whether public or private, that hold a critical role in our economy. And these are classified as critical infrastructure operators or critical infrastructure. Now these ones come together in that echelon organization called the NISAG, and to think about cyber risk at a national level. Because when you hack a bank, it loses money. When you hack someone else's computer, they use information. When you hack a critical infrastructure, you can cause death. You can cause a national incident, an incident that causes national security. And so at that level, the risks are at a different level, and so they congregate to address national risk. And so those are some of the things that is happening within our economy.
All right, brilliant to know. Ladies and gentlemen, as I get ready to bring it to a wrap here, and perhaps open up for the audience, if anyone has a specific question, it would be good for you to just raise your hand so I can see. But I don't know if this is still Martin Barr, but this is directed to you, Colin. It says, to Mr. Colin, how are you leveraging the youth with all the technology available to help, he's editing here, well, I guess the digitization process that is being implemented by government? How are you helping the youth? We're 70% youth, and energy, brains, agility. How are you tapping into that and helping?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank the online audience and the brilliant question. Indeed, we are a very youthful population in Uganda, and I think that's a fact now. And what may seem like a problem for us sometimes, because our youth, in many ways, are idle and not employed, is actually a great opportunity for this country. Uganda has been marketed as an agriculture, minerals, tourism destination, and you had very passionate here. I think what we have missed out on is really marketing Uganda as an ICT destination, and I will sort of elaborate on that. There's an equation I like to give. I say that we have a young population. If you add it to, we are also educated, we are English speaking, we have a great time zone. I was in Scotland representing Nita, and they were saying you have the greatest equation for business process outsourcing. And this is really that in Europe right now, they no longer want to do some of the mundane, typical tasks for administration and business processes. They're saying, can we move that to you? And we're saying, please bring them to Uganda. So the equation is this: young population, educated, good English. I must tell you that you'll be shocked, but Uganda's English articulation is very high on the, on the world scale. And then, a good time zone, but also very competitive in pricing. Now, India, Philippines, I think India, Philippines, and Malaysia have been topping this agenda for many years. Now their prices are up in the roof, and their time zone is a little off. And we are saying, why can't we now market Uganda and our young population as the next India? And basically, there are three elements very quickly. There is business process outsourcing, there is knowledge process outsourcing, so even legal work can be outsourced. Accounting work can be outsourced. Data analytics can be outsourced. The third area that we're looking at, and this is already ongoing discussion, we're forming think tanks, we are actually building an ICT park just to facilitate BPO. But the third area is software development. India has also taken a great advantage of becoming the software hub of the world. But you'll be shocked that Uganda has very skilled software developers in Uganda. The biggest issue are three things. Our BPOs, KPOs are knowledge process outsourcing, like legal work, administrative work, software. There are three major issues that they're talking about that we are now trying to address. One is space. Many entrepreneurs here, and I know Barbara is one of the entrepreneurs doing BPO work, and I've seen a number of BPO private sector players here. Space is a big issue. They're looking for, where do we sit? Where can we find well-serviced space? And I walked through some really nicely serviced spaces in Scotland where people just find everything set up and they're servicing the whole globe. We need to create space. Right now, Nita is just in almost the second last phase of setting up the first ICT park in Uganda, and to be in Entebbe, near the airport, with an exhibition center, a BPO center, a software center, with a high tier 4 data center, not just a tier 3, but tier 4, and we shall create space for innovation, because innovators now need space. BPOs, our youth, need service space. He wants to come with his rucksack from home, but find a space with internet, well-serviced, and he can collaborate and have people to handhold his idea from an idea in the garage in his bedroom to the market. The other issue that is coming up is internet, and we're having that discussion right now. The ED did hint to you, and those online, I hope you are listening to this, because it's very important. We hope that in the next few months, as the minister said, we should have the price of internet also brought down. It's a discussion we can't have fully here because it's in discussion. So the price of internet must come down. We must provide space. But lastly, we must provide the market. So space, internet, and the market. One of the reasons that we're now traveling quite a bit, and we're bringing together the Export Promotion Board, we're bringing together UIA, we're bringing together PSFU, we're bringing together Minister of ICT and Minister of Foreign Affairs. We are soon having a think tank discussion hosted by Nita and PSFU, just to talk about how to market Uganda. I think marketing is one of our biggest ifs right now. Our young people are ready, but nobody knows about them. Everybody says India, Malaysia, Philippines. We need to market Uganda a little more. So the government and NITA is doing something about this. Not just internet, building ICT parks and BPOs around the country. And I can share that, all morning. We're building in every region. We want to have a BPO center in every single region. But if we can solve this space, solve internet pricing, and solve the marketing of Uganda, we should do very well for our young people.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Colin. And, I'm glad to know some of the things you're talking about are actually happening. I was in another forum where I think Barbara was, and we have Ugandan teachers being sourced to teach English to Koreans. And I learned there that the average Korean has an annual budget of about $1,000 just to learn English. And we have so many Ugandan teachers teaching them. They're paid thrice as much as our teachers, scientists or artists, it doesn't matter, and they're not striking. So there is indeed potential, and those things I hope will come to fruition. But ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to bring this to a wrap, I'm going to allow them to give parting shots, but perhaps before they do, if there is anyone who might have a specific question. So I can see 1, 2, I'm waiting for a lady, really. So Barbara doesn't say. Any lady going once, going twice? All right, go on. So I'll just ask the two gentlemen if you could just get a mic and keep it short and precise.
Yes, my name is Edward Kakuru. I work with State House Uganda.
Could you come to the light so that we see you, especially where you come from?
My question goes to the Ministry of ICT and at the same time NITA. On 19th February 2022, there was an advert in newspaper, Daily Monitor, New Vision, saying why judiciary failed to hire a Ugandan company to do a court case management system. Yet we are here today celebrating the Uganda's digital transformation. As a youth, I felt like crying. Is it this my country? With all the institutions we have. So if we're still hiring foreign companies to do a 9.2 billion, here we are giving out money, human capital, we are killing innovation. So what's the way forward? For our young Ugandans, we're looking for. Government is investing a lot in UDAP. Many projects are coming up. What is the way forward to stop this so that we transform our country digitally and improving innovation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. State House will have the second question, and I'll let those who feel best suited to respond to do so. But let's just hear the second question. If you could also just come into the light, it will be prudent for us to see you.
Thank you to the panel and all the presentations. My name is Solomon Mangene. I come from Uganda National Meteorological Authority. I'm manager for engineering and ICT there. Now, first of all, I would like to suggest that such discussion should not end in this boardroom here. The reason is we have so many problems in the country to which this digitization is a solution. And I'll give a few examples. When you apply to Makerere University for engineering and you get 17 points, which could have happened to be last year's intake, and many of you pass Excel, the university raises the points and says now the intake points are 19. That means you can't get into the university. You need to find yourself elsewhere. Or they say, shall we give you education? Shall we give you to do a BSc physics? But was that your dream? So can this be used as an innovation to open up space to educate our young people in their areas of passion? Because the reason we raise points is to cut off as many as possible. This is a question of plenty where you are throwing out, you're only taking cream and even pouring out the milk. So in education, this can be a space opener so that let the nation just be educated, let people be educated. The question of where they will get jobs should not worry us. Let them just be educated. Universities go online, admit as many as possible, as long as they are qualified. The other area we could help ourselves is tracking on digital crime, those who have been to developed countries will bear me witness that you don't have to be running after a driver. But when he commits one crime, you strike points off his driving license. The next crime, you strike off. Eventually, he runs out of points and he can't drive in the country. So you have digitally imprisoned him. You are telling him everywhere you get him, the moment he puts in his NIN, you have him. And he can't access any service. So I think this is a very big innovation. And the last one I would like to comment on is the area of opening up space. I had trouble looking for a house for my firstborn son, who is employed with a foreign country, but looking for a house with fiber optic, because we wanted fast internet to access to enable him to do his job. So you see what's coming up. Even houses are going to be costed according to how connected they are. We could not just get any house for him because we needed one with fiber optic. So you see that this is really where the future lies. We have a young population, these innovations. I like the idea of the hubs where young people can just come in, do their thing, internet assured. Maybe they subscribe by membership or something like that, but I really applaud this innovation. However, the last comment is, how connected are we as government entities? I normally cry out for my institution when Operation Wealth Creation takes out seed in the wrong season, not knowing what's going to happen. When the Minister of Health would be even advised on what to stock when by my own authority, because the seasons move with diseases. And if only we spoke to one another, they would not be taking malaria in an area where malaria is not just about to happen, but they would be taking it where we know that really, according to the seasons, malaria is just about to hit Western Uganda. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Engineer. So I'm going to open it up and we'll do it this way. As you give your parting shots, you'll have the opportunity to respond to some of those questions. Some involved arresting people digitally, you know, we are pouring the milk and only taking the cream. Yeah, so I don't know who wants to go first. Should I start with you, Richard? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Solomon. Maybe I start with the last question on how connected are we. Of course, currently, right away from, I think, 2006 up to now, we've completed about, we've completed 4 phases of the backbone, of course, contributing to about 4,000 kilometers of optic fiber cable across the country. And I think the ED in his speech, of course, mentioned this. We have, so far as much of the country, the known parts actually have been connected. I could start by saying from the eastern route, we are at Busia, Malaba. The northern part, we are in Elegu. And then we have Vura, DRC, DRC, Katuna on the Rwanda side. So about 9 border points have been connected. And this is, of course, to increase on, of course, regional integration, to enhance that regional integration. We have a number of government entities at all these border points. And I think the issues of getting these services across those border points have been easy with the services that we provided. In terms of the statistics of where we currently lie as a country, or as what Nita-U has so far done, we've done about 1,400 government facilities. We've connected them to the backbone. And under the last mile project, which we've just concluded, we connected additional 700 sites. And also, our ED also hinted on the Wi-Fi, and that is basically to deepen services closer to the citizens. However, we still have, of course, to do a lot, as the minister has already hinted on. As a sector, or as NITA, we did an assessment of the entire country, and we found out that we have over 20,000 government administrative service points, and this includes hospitals, schools, and all the parishes. And even with the parish development model, we are now rethinking, okay, in the next project, the Uganda Digital Acceleration Project, we are now thinking deeper. How best can we take these services closer to the people? So we are doing this. We've factored it in our planning for the next phases, and we believe that with all your support, we will definitely achieve at least 80% of our country. You might wonder why government would take fiber to Karamoja, for example. It is because we want the private sector to utilize this facility so that they can transport their traffic to those part of the region, because possibly the cost of putting up this infrastructure might be expensive. And government is saying, for us, our contribution is that let's take fiber to all these regions. The private sector will also use. And under RRCIP, we have about the major private sector players in this space. We have about 19 out of about the 21. We have 19 utilizing the backbone. And this, we believe that when the private sector uses this infrastructure, definitely there's a trickle effect there about the cost, because through the backbone, we're able to give these services at a subsidized price so that the private sector can also provide these services to our citizens. So that is what we are looking out for, and we believe that in the next projects that are coming through, we will be able to work with you so that we can take these services, the e-government services, much closer to our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you so much, for being the project coordinator for this successful project. Collins, over to you for your parting shots. You might want to comment on how interconnected the government, the various government agencies.
Thank you. Almost 20 years ago, we were young IT people in the country, and we were brought on board to implement the IFMS system. And I can see a couple of my colleagues who are here. Justine was among the first 5, who were among the first 5 locals to be brought on board by the World Bank to implement the integrated financial management system around the whole country. And I want to speak to this software question that, that was raised by the brother from State House. Yeah. That journey 20 years ago, we could not implement our own enterprise government-wide systems. We used Oracle, we used Microsoft, and it was very successful. Many of those systems are still running. In fact, they're still being rolled out. Every time there's a new district or a new municipality, IFMS is still working 20 years ago, although many of us moved on from there. So, but software development is a journey, and I want to encourage everybody in this room that Uganda has actually progressed. While we were depending a lot on exported systems, our policy is getting clearer now for us to go open source, open standards, open APIs, and locally developed, like a boo-boo type, build for Uganda and by Uganda. So we are actually doing more local systems now more than ever. 20 years ago, we had to go to Oracle. Today, our first thought is, can we do this system here? You may have heard about the EGP, or the e-government procurement system. It's the first enterprise-grade system right now that's working throughout, the government. And it's running. It's, automating the processes all the way from sourcing and suppliers all the way to contracting and monitoring of procurement. And it is locally done by Ugandans for Ugandans. So we progressed. 20 years ago, we had to go to Oracle for all these systems. We had support costs, we had high sustainability costs. Now we are moving nearer to our own development. We have large systems within the education space, locally done by Ugandans. Some of you may have heard during the COVID time, since this panel is also talking about COVID, we woke up and His Excellency would announce and say, tomorrow there's a travel ban, okay? There's a lockdown. And you wonder how quickly we needed to move. But in about 6 hours, 7 hours after the announcement, NITA teams and Minister of Works teams had to work through the night to have an IT locally developed solution to actually ensure that travel was still happening. And in 2 days, ladies and gentlemen, 48 hours, we had a locally developed solution that brought all MDAs to apply issue permits, and policemen were able to monitor, by USSD and SMS who was supposed to be moving or not moving in 2 days. These are our local people. This is a team I found at NITA. I can't take credit. I am extremely impressed by our local skills in Uganda. Some of you may also remember the disbursement. We had to disburse to 500,000 vulnerable people. And it was announced during the COVID time. But guess what? NITA had to step up very quickly. And some of the people actually here, I've seen the young men and women who sat through the nights. In about a day and a half, 2 nights, I must say the ED also kept awake throughout those 2 days. He's very passionate about development. And, we stayed awake, but these guys were working. And in 2 days, we had a system that was integrated to the banks, integrated to mobile money and telcos, and picking information from clerks in municipalities, and efficiently disbursing to 500,000 vulnerable people. So it's a journey, and I feel strongly that our software journey has really taken shape. 20 years ago, we had to go to Oracle and Microsoft, and I worked there before, so I need to be fair that some of those complex systems were yet to get there. We're yet to get, and you talked about judiciary, extremely complex system for judiciary right now, and we had to go outside. But I think going forward, as our teams begin to mature, we must look inside, and it is possible to do it. So allow me to just close, of course, by my closing remarks, just to thank all the CIOs, thank everybody who came here today. Our dream at NITA and for the e-government directorate is to one day, and very soon this year, for us to have a citizens portal where all services can be found in one place, a one-stop portal for our citizen, a one-stop app for our citizens. It's happening in Estonia. In Estonia, the only reasons why you have to leave your home is for divorce and a mortgage. Only reasons. You can vote in your house, you can do your bank transactions in your house, you can apply for a permit, a passport, anything in the comfort of your home with a smartphone. Uganda can do the same. So I'm asking CIOs who are here, please work with us. Think e-services first now. We have been doing many things, but whenever you see a line, whenever you see a queue of Ugandans, that is an opportunity for an e-service. Let's make e-services, bring them into one portal, and deliver this one government service to our citizens. The last approach I want to mention is that we are also putting together a concept that we shall be sharing very soon, where we shall partner with EV Kira, the bus team. Imagine if we can't yet reach Kabong, and we can't reach Chihihi far away, or we can't reach someone in the farthest corner. Why can't the government go to them? We get a bus done by Chira, solar paneled, with NIRA on board, with URSB on board, with driving permits on board, an e-passport on board, with a bank on board, driving to our citizens, fully paneled, fully connected, and talk to our citizens. We need to reach out to our citizens while they reduce their cost of transacting with the government. So join me in this dream, join NITA in this dream as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Collins. Like he's put it, it's a journey. Though it seems lockdown helps to quicken that journey. Maybe Muzai should threaten us some more for quicker innovation. Let's hear from Stella. Parting shots on data protection and, whatever parting shots you have for us.
Thank you very much. Obviously, when you hear how passionate Colin is, you know a lot of data will be created, a lot of it will be stored.
And a lot might be abused.
Yes. To the CIOs here, let's ensure that we respect the use of personal data. Let's make sure that we put in place compliance frameworks within our organizations that will help us comply with the law. Let's take advantage of privacy by design, similar to what Noah was talking about. You can do all your processing with privacy in mind. That way you prepare for it rather than waiting for a problem, then you react to that problem. For many of you, your data controllers or you work with data controllers, the Data Protection and Privacy Act requires you to register with the office. This process is all automated. You just go to our portal. If you Google Personal Data Protection Uganda, it will automatically take you to our portal. That process is all digitized to the point of even receiving your certificate. So there are no excuses. We've provided so many guidelines within the system that can be of use to you. And of course, we are available to provide whatever guidance, whatever guidance you have. So we request that you be our ambassadors, that once you collect personal data, it is your responsibility to protect it. And many of you who are here are fully in charge of those protection measures. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stella. And last but certainly not least, Noah, what are your parting shots? Engineer, it's not really questions, more like comments, but you could speak into those as well.
Okay, I'll pick up from where Stella has left off. Now, once you know that you need to protect your data, the next thing is going to be how. And so that's the thing that I'm going to push for. How do you protect your data? How do you protect your systems? This must be thought of beforehand. What systems need to be deployed? What training do you need to have? And so that's the thing that we push for, awareness on cybersecurity risk, and knowing that, again, we speak about employment, but one of the most under-resourced areas is cybersecurity. That role remains a gap globally, by the way, globally. So if you trained even just 10% of the people who graduate in IT skills in cybersecurity, that is going to fulfill a very huge gap, a very huge need, both, of course, within government, but even in the private sector. The second point is also to support. I'll also add my voice to the Bubu, song. There are a handful of private sector cybersecurity firms in Uganda. Speaking of an 18-plus year practitioner, and that's a sad state of affairs. It's like saying, we are buying all these cars, and there are only 5 fuel stations, of which even the quality of fuel you question. And so now you're forced to import fuel in, and so the private sector in cybersecurity is so foreign dependent that it becomes our weakest link. And you see, many of these private organizations are for profit. And so they don't care whether, it's in Ugandans' best interest. As long as you pay for the license, they are good. But if you have homegrown industry, manned by Ugandans and serviced by Ugandans, that increases. We spend north of $50 million every year just paying for cybersecurity related costs, both government and private sector. That money can stay in country. Imagine what it could do to budding businesses that are growing in this area that should be of national concern. And so that, I just want to add my voice there as the chair of NISAG to encourage the CIOs there to also put on that hat, because ultimately you're the decision maker. You're the one who chooses Kaspersky or an organization here. And so give them a chance. And of course, with maturity level, considering the maturity level, you can't start giving them the whole pie. Give them bits and pieces as we build the industry. And at some point we'll have the maturity, not only to serve ourselves, but even to export and create value for our youth. Then finally, there was the question on tracking the criminals. And you brought up actually a very interesting example about a demerit system. Interestingly, the law was amended, the Traffic and Road Safety Act was amended in 2020 to add that component of a demerit system. So right now it's just about to be deployed. So when you commit a traffic offense, they just take up points. And so they'll catch you when you go for either renewal or when you're stopped and flagged down and they scan your award-winning driving permit. I don't know whether we knew that our driving permit is award-winning, but your award-winning driving permit will be able to track those demerit points. So just to give you comfort that is already enabled by our law, and it's a system that's about to be deployed. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. And a round of applause for the panel. I think they've done a very, very good job. And I'll actually allow them to just go and take their seats. We've pretty much come to a wrap of our session here today. And maybe I'll be inviting Collins to return. He gave us the opening remarks, and maybe he will bring this to a wrap as well. But just to let you know, lunch will also is actually ready, and will be downstairs at the Paradise Restaurant. But for now, let me just invite Collins to officially give us the closing remarks. And
of applause for our really cool MC. And yeah, I hope I'm loud enough. I really, really want to thank the Honorable Minister in his absentia, but I want to thank the representative of the PS, of the Minister of ICT and National Guidance, who is here. I really want to thank, of course, the CIOs who are here. I can see, very key CIOs, from our partners, the New Vision Group, UBC, Next Media, and all the people that have come here right now. Thank you so much, and we look forward to a partnership on how we can tell this story to Ugandans. I think many Ugandans really don't know what government is doing. They don't understand where we are on this journey, and rightly so. So we're really, we need to partner together closely. UBC, Vision Group, Next Media, and all the media that is here to just tell this digital transformation story together. I want to thank all the CIOs who have come this morning, put aside your time. I see directors, I see heads of IT, I see some of the top thought leaders in the industry, from the armed forces, the security forces. I want to take a moment to say thank you for taking time off your schedule, and hopefully you have seen where we are and where we want to go. So thank you very much. I want to thank our partners, strategic partners who are here, who first of all thank the World Bank. Thank you so much for just facilitating this over the last 5 years. We look forward to the next steps and the next journey as we do the digital acceleration. I want to thank our partners who are here. I think they mentioned them already, but we never work alone. We need to work with partners. Thank you, Soliton, that actually sponsored a big part of this breakfast. Let's have a big round of applause. Thank you. The MD is here and his team. Thank you. And I want to thank all our partners who are present, who have actually worked on this RCIP. I want to thank the staff of NITA, who really do a thankless job sometimes. Before I joined NITA, I never understood NITA, I must admit. I've been in the industry for long, but something went wrong, I said, these NITA people. Until I moved into NITA, and I realized that this team is lean on the ground, but they work extremely hard. And having been in this industry for more than 2 decades, I found some of the best brains at NITA. I really want us it may sound selfish, but please just clap for the NITA team and those who are behind this breakfast. So I want to just say thank you once again. The breakfast is now moving into a lunch mode, so I will stop here, but I want to just invite our ED, who will be passing on a last handover gift to the World Bank. Otherwise, thank you very much, and you're all invited to lunch. Please, please, please come to lunch as we continue on this journey. Thank you, ED.
It's lunchtime, so I'm not going to say much. I'll just hand over the gift to our main development partner, the World Bank. Thank you.
Thank you all, and bon appetit. It's a faith thing. There's food actually, so let me say bon appetit. I think the MC is out. We can close right now. Thank you very much once again, and please come again when we have these government-wide discussions. Let the discussion continue. Thank you. DJ?